Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sportsballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sportsballers podcast. My name is Eric. We've got a lot to do in today's show, but I'm joined by Corey and Evan as always. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
I'm doing great.
Good. It's
happy to be here.
It is a lovely, wet, rainy day here in gorgeous Prince George's. I'm sure Corey knows where he is. Evan, you might have better weather down there in Georgia, but it sounded like you had some unpleasantness coming through as well.
Yeah, it rained all day here too.
Nevertheless, we are excited because tomorrow is the opening day of baseball, and we will have a full preview of this upcoming season later in the show. That's going to be the meat of our production here. But first, we've got a few headlines from the NBA. We're going to recap the second weekend of the NCAA tournaments, and we're going to talk a little bit of NFL. We got a couple of headlines to get through first. So we'll start with the association. No state of the NBA this week because we've got a lot to do and bigger priorities. And frankly, not that much has happened since the last time I did one other than the trade deadline. There have been a couple of buyouts, though. LaMarcus Aldridge was bought out by the Spurs, and he surprisingly signed with the Nets. A lot of people didn't expect him to go there, but nevertheless, he did. And, of course, people are big mad about it because LaMarcus Aldridge is a former All-Star, the keyword being former. And so a lot of people are thinking it's just one more piece to add to this super team. But at this point, LaMarcus Aldridge is a role player at best. And I frankly don't really see the fit here because while he is still a capable offensive player, he plays a style that doesn't really suit the Nets given the fact that they score a ton of points as it is. And for every mid-range jumper that LaMarcus Aldridge takes, it's one fewer shot that Kevin Durant or James Harden or Joe Harris or Kyrie Irving get to take. So I'm not really sure how that fits. And frankly, LaMarcus Aldridge can't play any defense either, so he doesn't fix that issue for them. But he does provide some depth. He will have opportunities to score the basketball when he is in the game, perhaps with the bench unit, and he can maybe anchor some of those teams and keep them afloat while the stars rest on the bench. But I'm not seeing some huge paradigm shift in the NBA because LaMarcus Aldridge decided to sign with the Nets. The Lakers also made a move picking up Andre Drummond, who was bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Drummond provides the Lakers sort of what they need, which is a little bit more rim protection, another vertical asset on offense, some offensive rebounding. And so I think he'll provide some value to them, hopefully as they make a push to be in the deep playoff part of the season. That remains to be seen, obviously, with the health of LeBron James and with Anthony Davis scheduled to return pretty shortly. If those guys are healthy and they've ramped up to getting back into game shape, then I think that the Lakers are going to be right there in the mix. I think this addition helps them, but again, it's not exactly what they needed. What they really needed was some more scoring and playmaking from the guard positions, and that was why they kind of hoped to be able to trade for Kyle Lowry. But for reasons unknown, Kyle Lowry did not get traded at the deadline. He stayed with the Toronto Raptors despite a whole big production with Drake calling him at his press conference, basically wishing him good luck and all kinds of other silly stuff going on. But nevertheless, he's still with the Raptors. So good for him, I guess, but that's not great for the Lakers because they were hoping to get him. So as we get closer to the postseason, we'll obviously have more NBA stuff. Right now we're kind of in the dregs of the season, wrapping up the regular year with a couple more months to go. But obviously the playoffs will be significantly covered here on the Sports Ballers podcast. But we'll move on to the bigger story, and this is probably the only time of year you would ever say that about college basketball, but right now the NCAA tournament is still in full swing. We just finished up the second weekend on the men's side and on the women's side, but specifically on the men's side, because that's what we filled out our brackets for, we are all screwed. And by us, I mean the three of us. Other people in our bracket pool are doing pretty well, and none of them are us. So I'll give a few shout-outs to some individuals in our bracket challenge. Some individual named Zadelst1 is currently tied for first place with Shannon Cummings with 730 points, and they have the same max opportunity for the Final Four. And it looks like one of these individuals, Zadelst, has Baylor winning the championship, and Shannon has Gonzaga. So it's going to come down to possibly that final, because that seems to be the most likely championship game. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I mean, whoever Zadelst or Zadelstay or however you pronounce that, whoever that is, if you want to let us know who you are, we can give you a more proper shout out next week on the show. But definitely big props to Shannon, one of Rashonda's friends who joined the tournament and is doing very well.
Yep, definitely making us look bad. And some other individuals we'll give props to. Longtime listeners of the show, James Daly and Rashonda, are tied for third with 690 points. James has Gonzaga as his champion, and he's got 3 out of his 4 in the Final Four. And Rashonda had picked Houston and only lost LSU from her Final Four. So 3 out of 4 is pretty darn good, especially considering how insane this first couple of rounds were with all the upsets.
Yeah, I mean, James came down to the last game last night. He could have had all 4 of his Final Four teams in if UCLA hadn't held on to beat Michigan.
Wow.
That would have been impressive, and at that point he probably would be leading.
Yeah, that would have put him first.
So tough luck for that, because I had Michigan in the Final Four as well, but I also only have one team that made it, so
that's one
life.
More than me.
Yes, that's true. So we'll get to us, because we're going to talk about us last, because we deserve to be talked about last, because we suck.
We talked about it all. Like I made multiple donations to the winners of various bracket pulls. Right? That was foolish.
Giving money away. Yep. So among the 3 of us, I lead the contest with 590 points, and I can still earn another 160 if Gonzaga is able to beat UCLA and get to the finals, because that's where I predicted that they would end up. I had them losing to Illinois in the championship game. And Corey has 450 points, so he's a bit behind me, but he's got a little bit more upside because he's got Baylor, and if Baylor wins the title, he would pass me. So it's probably going to come down to Gonzaga versus Baylor for the championship, and whoever wins gets the honor of finishing in first among 3 and third to last among 25. So
yeah, I mean, I'm in dead last right now. So
yeah, so that tells you where we are. You guys probably shouldn't listen to us when it comes to college basketball, but we told you that when we filled out our brackets. So
yeah, Evan is 10 points ahead of me, but he doesn't have any teams left alive, so he can't earn any more points.
Yeah, he's finished at 460, which is not great. But again, I can't.
I'm like 33rd percentile on ESPN, so I don't know how anybody could be doing worse than me, right? Unless they picked all 4 16 seeds to go to the Final Four, something like that, right? Like what? Oh my God, this is the worst I've ever done.
Yeah, Evan was giving me gas for being too chalky, and now he's just buried in what will likely be last place.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever done this poorly either. I usually have at least 2 of my Final Four teams in the Final Four, but at least I have my champion still alive, so I've got that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Me, which is nice.
Yeah, you can cling to that while I cling to Gonzaga because I predicted that they would get to the final. I didn't give them enough credit and say they were going to win, even though, for all intents and purposes, they look like they're by far and away the best team in college basketball.
Yeah, but this is not the first year that they've looked like they're by far and away the best team in college basketball, and every single time they end up blowing it, usually before the Final Four, to be fair. So we're almost in uncharted territory at this point, but I can't blame anybody for not picking them to win. I was a little bit surprised that they seemed to be the most picked team in our contest.
Well, I think part of it is that they did make it to the final a few years ago against North Carolina, and that North Carolina team was better than them. and they hung with them. So I feel like a lot of people thought maybe Gonzaga's exercised their demons when it comes to advancing deep in the tournament. That's certainly how I felt, because I used to sit there and never pick Gonzaga to go deep because of those failures that you mentioned. It was sort of like Virginia, who consistently lost early and then did the worst thing ever, which is lose to a 16 seed play-in team. But they managed
like
to
every Big East team ever.
Yes, like Pittsburgh every year, Georgetown every year. There's just teams that you just don't trust. But once they get there and sort of get over the hump, you feel like they've kind of figured it out, even though it's different kids, so it's kind of stupid that we do this because it's a different set of kids every single time.
But it's not any more stupid than picking against them because they have those playoff demons when it's a new set of kids every few years.
Right, but at least you can tie that to a coach, perhaps.
True.
In this case, Mark Few, I think, is an outstanding coach, so I'm not going to say that it's his fault. Maybe it was his fault, but he seems to have figured it out. This is another Final Four appearance. Yeah. They go into this matchup with UCLA, and let's talk about UCLA a little bit, though, because they've pulled two upsets that nobody saw coming. They beat Alabama in the Sweet 16. Alabama missed a ton of free throws. They went 11 of 25 from the stripe and lost in overtime. So, self-inflicted wounds. It's so surprising because Alabama has such elite shooting. And you can have a bad night from shooting from three because people are defending you from three. You typically don't see people just who are great at free throws missing free throws. Like, when was the last time you saw like James Harden or Steph Curry make 4 out of 10 free throws? It's impossible.
Well, there was the guy for UCLA last night who's a 91% free throw shooter, and he missed one of his 2 at the ends that would have put them up by 3, and instead they had to defend a 2-point lead down to the wire.
Yeah, but that's 2 shots. Like, that's a small sample. 25 and you made 11. You shot 44% from the free throw line when you are that team. That's crazy. Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And but you give UCLA credit; they took advantage of it. Although they kind of blew it at the end. Actually, they gave up a ridiculous 3 that allowed the game to go to overtime, but they made up for it by being pretty dominant in the overtime period.
They absolutely thrashed them in overtime. They beat them by 10.
Yeah, but the coach named Mick Cronin, I think, he wanted to foul to prevent that 3 from going up, but then he feared that Alabama's coach and their bench overheard that strategy, so he decided to change course. And then they gave up the game-tying 3 and had to sweat it out in overtime for about 30 seconds because they boat raced them. But, again, credit to UCLA. I think that's their second, maybe that's their third overtime win this tournament, including back to the Michigan State game that they won when they were playing in the first 4.
I didn't even pick UCLA to win their round of 64 game. I think it was against BYU or somebody.
Yeah, I picked BYU as well.
I picked BYU.
Oh, my God. So, that's how my bracket has gone. Just, the teams I had losing in the first round just cruise all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah, and then UCLA came back 2 days later and upset number 1 seed Michigan in what was just an absolute rock fight of a game. 51-49 final. I mean, if you had told me that Michigan was only going to give up 51 points, I would have said, okay, they won by 30. And they lost. So that tells you how this game went. I knew that missing Isaiah Livers was going to be a problem for them, but I figured it wouldn't rear its head until they got to the Final Four. I figured they'd still be able to get past UCLA, and it just didn't happen for them last night. They got handled on the defensive end.
Yeah, I was really impressed by UCLA's defense, especially down low, because, I didn't start really paying attention to the game until the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. But when, everything I saw, it seemed like Michigan for a while was trying so hard to run their entire offense through Hunter in some form or another, whether it was trying to get it to him down low or trying to run the pick and roll up top through him. And UCLA hung with him and didn't let him get any kind of positioning. Even the couple of times where they let him go to the left hand, which is his dominant hand, they didn't really give him a good angle at the basket, and so he was missing all of those. I was really impressed with that because Hunter has been really good this tournament.
Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the bigger part of it is that they were able to take him away, but Michigan still had opportunities to score, and Dickinson did take advantage of some of that extra attention, but Franz Wagner couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. I mean, he had a terrible game. I mean, he fired up that air ball, that brick three that just wasn't even close. Smith didn't have a very good game either. It's just that their perimeter players didn't take advantage of openings and open shots. They just had a collective off night, and
I didn't really
that's the way the tournament works.
I didn't really get why he went.
You get beat.
I didn't really get why he went for 3 there either, because I mean, he is so quick. Like, just that first step is so explosive. We saw with about 2 or so minutes to go in the game, he got the ball out there, kind of in the wing, or not the wing. I'm not really sure what you would call that. It's like
the elbow, maybe.
It's not really the elbow, because the elbow is where the free throw
break
line meets the line where the players wait for the free throw to be shot, whatever that's called. That's the elbow, but basically like the 3-point version of the elbow is where he was, and just one step and he blew by the defender, and he didn't have the right touch on it when he put it up off the glass, so he missed it. But why wouldn't you try that move again there instead of just running out and throwing up a semi off balance 3? He didn't have enough legs under him to get enough power on it, and that's why it fell so short.
I mean, I thought that he was wide open.
He squared himself up. He was wide open. He squared himself up, but he was like still moving, so he didn't really get his legs under him enough to generate the power to actually get the range on that shot that he needed.
Yeah, he could have taken a dribble to give himself a little rhythm and still taken a 3, though, because
nobody was near him.
The UCLA defense crashed the paint.
Nobody was closing on him as he shot. He was wide open. This was not like the previous possession where UCLA for some reason decided to draw up a 3-pointer, and they had the guy driving in and then chuck it out to the guy in the corner as the defender closed in. Somebody was at least closing in on him, so you can see why he was slightly offline with that shot.
I couldn't believe UCLA shot that ball so early.
Rashonda couldn't either. Rashonda was like, what the hell?
No, what? No. And that is exactly why Michigan still had time to put up potentially 4 opportunities at game-winning shots, because you left so much time on the clock rushing what you hoped would be a dagger shot. You should have taken more time off the clock. But, again, though, it was the same strategy that they employed. They were desperate to take away Dickinson because they didn't have anybody with the size to bang with him one-on-one. So when they ran a little bit of pick and roll at the top of the key, both players went with Dickinson when he rolled to the basket and said, if Franz makes it, he makes it, but he hasn't made it all game, and he threw up an air ball. So that was how it worked out for him. But, I mean, it was still just, even when a game is terrible for 39 minutes, it's still super intense when it's that close, because you just don't know what's going to happen. The shot that Smith took when he ran down the floor with 6 seconds left after that missed free throw, he had that guy's ankles broken. And I was like, oh, my God, he just cleared enough space to get a wide open look from 3, and he just left it short. I was like, oh, my God, I thought for sure that was going in. And then, of course, the offensive rebound scuffle, and then Wagner got another shot. But I knew as soon as it left his hand that wasn't going in. That was way off. But, it was a hell of a finish to a pretty brutal game to watch. But that's sports. So we had another upset in the second weekend, although we might be stretching a little bit to call this an upset. Oregon State beat Loyola Chicago. Nobody had it because I don't think maybe somebody had Oregon State advancing against Oklahoma State. But Loyola Chicago was an 8. Oregon State was a 12. But I also admit that Loyola Chicago was a little bit underseeded. I thought for sure that they were going to beat Oregon State, and they didn't. So credit to the Beavers, but they ended up losing anyway. So it was an interesting Sweet 16. It wasn't as upset heavy as the first 2 rounds were, but it never is. But we move on to the Final Four. Like we mentioned before, Gonzaga will be facing UCLA, and Baylor will be facing the Houston Cougars, who look really good. So that's going to be a really good game, I think. So we'll talk a little women's tournament. Unfortunately, we have to start with the headline that Maryland was upset by the University of Texas.
Yeah.
In the was that the Sweet 16?
Yeah, it was.
That was ugly, to say the least. Maryland, who had the most dominant offense in the country, just could not get anything going against Texas. It was a brutal, brutal outing for them. Texas was able to really make Maryland uncomfortable on the offensive end, and it just looked like they could never get into a rhythm. They had a chance to win late. They went up by 2. Then Texas hit some big shots. Maryland's offense completely sputtered the last 2 or 3 possessions, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, it was really disappointing. They fought. You got to hand it to Texas. I think this was more Texas winning the game than it was Maryland losing the game. But definitely the offense that has been so reliable all season just didn't show up the way that it needed to in this game, especially down the stretch. So, disappointed for Brenda Fries. This seemed like a team that had a real opportunity to get into the Final Four and make some noise there. I was really looking forward to seeing them playing against the likes of South Carolina and UConn and Stanford.
Yeah, it's interesting just like the juxtaposition looking at the men's tournament versus the women's tournament. And this was a 6 versus a 2. And in the men's tournament, if a 6 beats a 2, it's like, okay, that happens all the time. But here it was a huge upset. But that just goes to show how the powers work in college and women's college basketball. Upsets are far less frequent, and the top teams really are the top teams. They're really hard to beat. And the fact that Texas pulled it off means they deserve all the credit in the world. There's no such thing as, if you beat a team like that, I don't give a crap how badly they played. They're still have a huge talent advantage over you and usually figure it out. You have to be on it for all 40 minutes, and Texas was.
Yeah, once you get to, somewhere between, the 10th ranked and the 15th ranked teams in women's college basketball, you start to see bigger and bigger drop-offs. Yep. That's why you look at the Final Four, you've got 3 1s and a 3 seed in the Final Four, even in a year where on the men's side, we're seeing more, I feel like more upsets, more lower seeds making noise, and not just because you've got a team like UCLA making it to the Final Four. This is not the first time we've seen a first 4 team make it that far. VCU did it back, I think, the first year that we had the first 4. They made it all the way to the Final Four. Yep. But every year you'll see, some lower seed, 7 or lower make it to the Final Four from one of the brackets. You almost never see that on the women's side.
UConn won a national championship from the 7 seed.
Yeah. I would say that it's probably less frequent. That was going to come out not quite right, but you'll see a lot of years where on the men's tournament you won't have 3 1 seeds make it to the Final Four. But you very rarely see less than 3 of them make it to the Final Four on the women's side.
Yep. So the Final Four on the women's side is set. It'll be South Carolina versus Stanford. Those are 2 1s going at it. And number 3 seed Arizona will face number 1 UConn in the other Final Four matchup.
Sorry, but I don't like UConn's women's team very much. I was rooting so hard for Iowa. I was so disappointed they couldn't pull it out.
What do you have against the UConn women's team?
I don't care for Gino that much, to be honest.
Oh. Well, he's not the most likable character.
No.
He seems sort of Bill Belichick-ish. Like his teams just dominate everybody. And, you just kind of stuck and deal with it.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the Belichick charm. Too. He doesn't have the Belichick charm. Like Belichick, I didn't like Belichick for a long time, but then
that's an oxymoron.
No, because once you start to watch Belichick's press conferences, I didn't really care for Belichick, to be perfectly honest, until I started seeing more of his press conferences. I love this guy. He is hilarious in his press conferences. Even when he's just deadpan, refusing to answer questions, that's hilarious.
I wouldn't use
charm. Funny at all. I think he's the most dull, boring person, right?
Until you ask him a question that he's actually interested in which case he actually becomes very interesting and very talkative.
Okay, but I don't want to ask him stuff that he wants to answer, right? I would have football-related questions, and he'd just be on the Cincinnati.
Okay, but that depends on your definition of football-related, because if you're talking about the X's and O's, he will talk your head off about anything that has to do with strategy, as long as it does not apply directly to what is your team going to try and do against that team.
Before we get back on track here, one of the most interesting Belichick moments like that Corey's referencing is somebody asked him a really good question about how do you ensure that your players know all of the rules? Because there's a ton of rules in football, and the players have to know them down pat like the refs do. And so Bill went on this long answer. He was explaining, okay, well, we walk him through this by position, yada, yada, yada. It was just an awesome answer that you don't typically see from Bill because he doesn't typically get a question that's that intriguing. But I wouldn't call Gino Auriemma, Bill Belichick. I think he's a little more cranky than Bill is.
Yeah.
Bill's just kind of a dullard, whereas Gino tends to whine.
Because Bill Belichick's just so warm and cuddly, right?
But he doesn't whine.
He's cold, but he's not. He doesn't get whiny and cranky all the time. He's just a grumpy guy.
I can deal with somebody being a little bit grumpy. Like, I don't mind. I don't hate that, but yeah, I'm not a big Geno fan, so I'm rooting against UConn. Sorry.
Well, I think Stanford's going to win this whole thing anyway. So, I think they're the best team in the country. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, it's going to be tough because South Carolina has such a good program on the women's side.
So Stanford, though.
Well, yes, absolutely. But I think that, I don't think it necessarily matters too much which of those two teams wins because I think that both of them can match up with UConn just as well as the other can.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll move to the NFL. We got a couple of topics to hit on before we get to our baseball stuff. We'll start with the Deshaun Watson saga. This isn't a great story to talk about because we liked Deshaun Watson. And yes, we are being given a lot of reason not to like Deshaun Watson anymore.
Yeah.
Namely, the Sports Illustrated article that Jenny Vrentas wrote, where she investigated a situation from a woman that had worked with Deshaun Watson and described her experience working with him as a massage therapist. And that the story was harrowing. It was something that makes your stomach turn. It was just an awful story to read. And it gives a little bit of insight into sort of what these women go through when things like this happen. And perhaps more importantly, towards the issue of Deshaun Watson's guilt or lack thereof, it provides an independent source of corroboration to the other lawsuits because this woman is not attached in any way to any legal grievance filed against Deshaun Watson. This is entirely independent. She didn't even give her full name. She just wanted her story to be told and has no interest in any type of recourse financially or pressing charges against him.
At least it's not as of yet. Yes.
Sure. But the point is she's not connected to this lawsuit that made us sort of hesitate because of who was attached to it, namely the legal counsel
Busby.
That we didn't trust. So
yeah, that's Sorry, I was just going to jump in and say that was the big thing for me in reading this. I mean, obviously the fact that there was so much detail that, we've seen kind of the bits and pieces of Deshaun did this or he did that allegedly. But to get a full story beginning to end, how they got in touch with each other, the fact that Watson reached out a couple times afterwards and may or may not have even realized that he was talking to somebody he had worked with before. The fact that she is not attached, she says that she was contacted by Busby. That's the lawyer for all the other women who have filed lawsuits against Watson. And she felt pressured into signing something, which, on one hand, sort of, in a sense, corroborates my hesitancy to just, flat out believe everything that he is saying. But because it's independent, because she's kind of saying I wasn't really comfortable with the situation they were trying to pull me into, but I still think it's important that I, put this story out there and let people know. And, I'm still looking into whether I'm going to, look for any legal action or not and what I might do on that front. But most importantly, I want to make sure that other massage therapists, other people in my industry are aware that this is an issue, so that they can, go into any situation where they may work with Watson or have the option to say no with that information in mind. I thought that this was, without a doubt, the most credible of any of the testimonies that we've heard, any bits or pieces or full stories from so far.
Yeah, this was the most credible, and I mean, it was just exceptionally damning to read this. Like you said, Corey, it was so much depth, beginning to finish, and it was, oh my God, like really, like how can you? I I I have a really hard time, defending Deshaun Watson now after reading that, because like didn't seem like there was any gray area where it was like, oh well, he might not have done it.
Right. I
Like
mean,
this is awful.
It was a great job of investigative journalism as well on the part of Jenny Vrentas, because she didn't just take this woman's story, which on its own probably should be enough, for us to say, this is believable. But she also went and she talked to I believe it was a relative who the woman had contacted like right after the session with Watson had ended, and was able to verify that everything that they got from this woman who went by the alias Mary in the story lined up with what she had told her relative in the hours after it happened. So, the fact that she went and she talked to other people who'd been contacted by Mary, in quotes, I think just adds to the credibility of the story. Today, Watson's attorney has come out and said they have documents from 18 different women who have together worked with Watson for, I think it was over 130 hours of massage therapy time, and that he never did anything inappropriate with them. But in light of, in particular, this testimony in the Sports Illustrated article, I'm led more to think that, okay, so Watson didn't do it every time. Yeah. Freaking good for him. He shouldn't have done it any time, and it sure as hell sounds like he did it at least this one time, which is one time more than should be okay. Watson's attorney also this past week said that they have evidence that at least one of the women on the other lawsuit had, fabricated her story.
There's still 20 more women.
But there were still 20 more women, and somehow that one potential false story is supposed to destroy the credibility of all the others. Well,
the other 20.
Even if we did accept that as an argument, well, now we got one that's completely independent. And I would say that if that doesn't add credibility to the others, at the very least, that one is still one too many times for Watson to be doing this bull crap. It's completely unacceptable.
Yeah. How did he even come to the decision that this behavior was acceptable? Like, how do you go into a massage parlor and, you know what, I'm going to act a fool? That, like, what are you thinking? What are you even doing? Like this, you don't have to be told that this is wrong to know that this is wrong, right? Like this isn't hard. It just boggles my mind how someone would do this.
Yeah, I don't believe that the 18 women that come to his defense by saying, "Well, he didn't do anything to me," really does much for me, because that you could say that about, if I kill 3 people, you could ask 7 billion people that I didn't kill, and they would say, "Well, you didn't kill me." Well, yeah, so what? That doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean he didn't do the other thing.
Right? Yeah, I mean, in fact, all that tells me is that he picked targets. He decided not to do this to certain women based off of any number of reasons, and he thought that other women were easier marks. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, this whole thing about, these 18 women, together provided at least 130 hours of service, right? Which 130 divided by 18, it's about 7 hours each. So that's going to be over multiple sessions for each of these women, at least on average. They're probably not going to book him another time if he did something that made them feel uncomfortable. So of course, anybody who's worked with him more than once is probably going to say, yeah, he didn't do anything to me, because he probably didn't do anything to them. But that's the thing. He didn't do it to them.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless you had some actual witnesses to people who were there when some of the accusers were working with Watson and they told a different story. Then you would have something. But to simply be a character witness and say, hey, he didn't do it to me, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, we talked about this. Deshaun Watson has publicly made himself appear to be a wonderful young man. But a lot of people do that because a lot of people act differently in private. They act differently in different situations. Everybody has different flaws, whether they're big or small. This case would be very big, but they're still able to hide that in certain situations, namely when they're playing football or at a press conference or at a charity event or in a TV commercial. Like, they're not going to say, they don't wear a badge on them and say, I'm a sexual predator. It doesn't work that way. These are things that always happen behind closed doors, and we only have the testimony of these women to prove that they are like this. You can't just walk in and hope to pop in at the right time and catch somebody doing something terrible. It doesn't work like that because these people don't do that when something like that could happen. They do it behind closed doors so we don't know about it. So I'll say what I said last week. Deshaun Watson needs to say something. Him, not his agent, not his lawyer. He needs to make a statement if he wants to try to salvage some credibility out of this, because it is all but gone at this point. And I don't have any sympathy for him if he's going to continue to hide behind a lawyer or an agent or a PR person. He's got to be the one to come out and explain what the hell is going on here.
I think you used a really important word in what you said when you called him a predator. Because, like, this is predatory behavior when, you know, somebody is working for you and you decide you want to take advantage of them, right? Like, that's just not cool. And, you know, and yes, we need to hear from Deshaun Watson, right? Like, if all of these people, if you're so innocent and all these people are trying to crap on your reputation, you need to come out and say something like, hey, I didn't do that.
Well,
I definitely didn't do that.
He already has
just
said
as
something.
bold as they are, and we're not hearing anything.
He already has said something, though, because right when the first allegation kind of came out, he posted on his social media that he has never treated any woman with anything but the utmost respect.
But then more and more stories keep coming out.
Well, keep in mind, every single one of these stories, it happened before he posted that, right? So that response would be his response for all of these, right?
What is his response to the SI story?
It's probably unless he's going to come out and admit wrongdoing, the story is going to be the same. So why would he say anything else? It would be foolish of him to say anything else at this point unless he's going to come out with an admission. So that's probably the advice he's getting from his lawyer is you don't need to say anything right now.
He needs to say something.
Well,
he only needs to say something if he's guilty.
Well, it's looking like he's pretty damn guilty to me. So.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But at this point, if he says anything, the assumption is going to be now he's being defensive. He's guilty. Right? Now, yes, we can sit here and say, well, we think he's guilty anyway right now, right?
Well,
but saying anything does not help that. Saying anything can only make it worse. It cannot help it. So from a standpoint of trying to protect his reputation, whatever little bit is left, it does absolutely 100% behoove him not to say anything more than he's already said right now.
I would have more respect for him if he said something and explained himself, either to prove some level of misunderstanding here or to admit wrongdoing. But staying silent, that's a coward's way of doing things. I don't give a damn what his lawyer's telling him to do. For his own reputation at this point, he has to either own up to this or explain it. That's it.
If somebody's coming after me saying I did something that I didn't do, I'm going to be as loud and bold as possible saying I didn't do it.
Okay, but here's the thing. You guys are leaving it at the implication you're making there, Eric, is that there are only two possibilities. Either he actually did all these things and he's guilty, and so he needs to come out and admit it and say he did wrong, which I agree. If that's the case, yes, he should do that. Or, there's some misunderstanding and these women experience something that didn't actually happen the way that they think it did, and so he needs to explain that away. There's another option.
You misconstrue what happened in the SI story.
Exactly. I don't see how you can misconstrue that. So either all of this did happen and he's guilty and he needs to say that, or none of it happened, he's not guilty, and saying anything does not do him any good, in which case, because he's already covered that by saying he's never treated any woman with anything but the utmost respect. Right?
He said that on Twitter weeks ago. Who cares? That doesn't matter anymore. It holds no weight.
Yes.
It holds no weight.
It holds exactly as much weight as if he said it today, because he said it. He said it, and these stories have come out, yes, but these stories are of things that he did allegedly before he posted on Twitter. So that covers anything that comes out that took place before that date that he wrote that. So
no way. I don't agree with that.
To me, it's one or the other. He either did it all or he did none of it. And if he did none of it, he doesn't need to say anything more than he already has. If he did do all of it, then yes, he needs to come out and apologize, and whatever making amends looks like, he needs to do that.
Yeah, but I don't agree with the assessment that he made one statement when there was seemingly only one accuser, and that's good enough, because at the time we said, okay, you can explain away one. Now you've got 20 plus the SI story. Okay, I'm coming back and saying, oh, you never treat women with anything but the utmost respect? Explain this. He has to, or he doesn't. But if he can, he should. If he can't, he needs to face the music. I don't give a damn about this idea of silence is golden at this point. Silence doesn't do you any good either.
If none of it happened, how can he explain this? What explanation is there? What explanation is there? He already said none of it happened by saying he's never treated any woman with anything but the utmost respect. That says that nothing has ever happened, which includes every story that has come out since then.
Then he needs to reinforce what he already said then, because going silent and saying, oh, there's a lot more of them now, I'm in trouble.
Being silent does not necessarily mean he's saying, this is really not... Nothing
going my way. Yeah, that's what it comes across to me. So
I feel like he's got to address this.
This isn't a plead the fifth moment here. This isn't a criminal trial.
He hasn't pled the fifth. What he said before is still his statement until he makes another statement.
And he hasn't. He sat silently.
Exactly. So that statement still stands for him as of right now. That is still the statement he's going with.
Well, that's pretty weak.
You can read that every day, and that's still his statement until he comes out with something more.
That's pretty weak sauce. Level 1 weak sauce.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're moving on. Let's talk some actual football instead of discussing the legal strategies of a sexual predator. The NFL is moving to a 17-game season, which is something that I don't really like, but I'm still going to watch. So
you don't like it?
We get an extra week of the Octobox.
Yeah. Shout out to our friend of the podcast, Scott Hansen, who now has another week of work.
Yeah, and he's probably paid the same, so I'm sure he loves that.
The players are paid the same.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like I said, though, I'm not thrilled about it. I think 17 is... I hate the fact that it's an uneven number. I thought that the 16-game schedule worked pretty well, but I also know that there's no way I'm not going to watch Week 18 football. Yeah. I'm going to tune in.
What are you going to be doing on January 9th?
I'm absolutely going to be watching football.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think that this is
spend all day in church instead. Like, really? Come on.
No. I'm going to be watching football, but my feeling on this is that adding the 17th game just means it's inevitable they're going to add an 18th game, and if we can get the Super Bowl all the way out to President's Day weekend, hey, that works. I love a 3-day weekend. The week of the Super Bowl. That would be wonderful.
Let's have the Super Bowl in June, right? Like, let's just play all the games.
Okay, now we're going too far. But
then all the players will be hurt by, mid-January, and we're going to be hating life.
I do agree with Eric, though. I mean, if we're not going to get the Monday after the Super Bowl to be a holiday, we may as well just go ahead and put it where it would be a holiday anyway. So
Yeah.
Labor Day to President's Day works.
President's Day
So the way this is going to work is they're going to take away one preseason game, so it'll be a 3-game preseason. The AFC and NFC will alternate having the additional home games. So this year, the 16 AFC teams will have a 9th home game. And then next year, the NFC teams will take their turn. Baltimore's additional game this year will be against the Rams. Washington's will be at Buffalo. So hooray us. We get to play Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in them. The thing that stood out to me about the story, because the story itself was not surprising. We kind of knew that this was coming. The players agreed to it in the CBA that a 17th game could be added as soon as 2021. We knew that the owners would probably okay it because it adds more revenue, to go along with the new TV deal that they've got, which, to be fair, the players' salaries will not change, but between the extra game and the TV deal that's been renegotiated, we should see the salary cap increase pretty substantially next year. It went down this year, but it should not just return and maybe have be at the level where it should have been in 2022 if the COVID pandemic hadn't happened. It may even be ahead of that. Which would be good for the players.
Yeah.
With the TV deal, the players now get, I think, 48.5% of the revenue share, which is good for them. Still not the level of the NBA, but starting to get toward that 50% mark, which to me the players should at least have 50% in my opinion. But anyway, the thing that really stood out to me in all this was the comments that Roger Goodell made about it, because his quote was, "What we are actually doing is following the data and following the science and making sure that we're doing these things well, both from a health and safety standpoint, as well as seeking to get better in every way." Which, aside from being a nothing kind of statement, the whole argument that this is better from a health and safety standpoint, that argument is coming from some data that suggests that injuries may be more prevalent in the preseason. But the problem with that is that in the preseason, you have a lot more players who don't have the same talent. These are guys who are on the fringe of the roster, fighting to make a roster spot. They're putting their bodies even more on the line to make a roster spot in the first place. Not to mention, they aren't as talented as the stars. They are not as good at keeping their bodies out of harm's way. They're not good at tackling, initiating contact, taking contact in a way that protects their bodies. And so, they're a little bit more likely to get hurt. But also part of it is because it's still early in the season. And while, having less contact practices during the preseason, during OTAs, overall, I think has been a good thing. Because you're taking less contact, you're also preparing your body less for that contact. And so you tend to have more injuries, in particular early in the season. And so shortening the preseason, that first game is basically going to be a preseason game that counts as far as the timing of the season. So these players are going to be just as, fresh off of their off season as they would have been in a game 4 of the preseason. I don't think that this is at best, the injury needle won't move, in my opinion. If anything, we'll probably have more meaningful injuries in the regular season based on this.
Yeah, this had nothing to do with injuries.
Like, I think it's
like money.
I think that is such a BS statement from Goodell.
Don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. Come on, I know how this works.
This is a bold-faced lie, right? Like, Roger Goodell's talking out of both sides of his ass in this statement. Like, this is complete crap. I'm sorry. Like, you can't tell me that playing more football and is following the health and safety guidelines. Like, that's not a thing. I'm sorry. Okay? If the NFL cared about health and safety, they would close up the business, give the players $1 million each, and tell them to go home and never play football again. We all know what the deal is. Everybody's trying to make money. The owners are trying to make money. The players are trying to make money. Adding a 17th game gives everybody an opportunity to make more money. That's all it is, right? And like we just said at the start of this portion of the show, we're all going to sit and watch the 18th week. We parked on that couch all day long, okay? We're all going to buy beer. We're all going to buy jerseys. We're going to hopefully get to go to games. So,
and speaking of that, Goodell also
health
this
and
week.
safety. That's garbage.
Yeah, I mean, Goodell also this week said that he expects all the stadiums to be full by the time we get to the fall.
I mean, that sounds like it's probable, and hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
tells
we're
us that
making
our
enough.
vaccine effort is doing well.
Yeah, we're making enough progress on the vaccine front. By the time we get to September, and even August with the preseason games, the 3 of them that there'll be, you figure that we should be in a good enough spot on the vaccine front that we should be able to safely have the stadiums full.
Yeah, well, like Evan said, playing football and being safe and healthy are mutually exclusive things. There's no such thing as that's insanity. So again, it's all about making money. It's all about the Benjamins. But hey, that's what the players and the owners agreed to, and I'm sure the TV networks are happy as well. And I'll be watching. You'll be watching.
Yeah.
Everybody will be watching. So
Of course.
in the end, does it really
Ratings will be
matter?
Huge. I'm sure.
Well, that's all we got for football. We'll have some more football stuff as the draft approaches. We may or may not do what we did last year with a full live stream of the first round, but we'll see. We'll let you know in a couple
I would like
weeks.
to. I think Evan would like to.
I want to too.
That'd be cool. I'd be up for it as well.
Yeah, the only thing is just going to be making sure that we can get the audio visual synced up. That's the reason that we don't actually have our faces on this weekly podcast and we stream live is because it's just a pain in the butt to get the audio and the visual synced up. But we'll do what we can to make that happen.
Faces for radio.
Yeah, I thought it was just because we looked like ass, but hey, I'll take the other excuse too.
Hey, I got a fresh cut the other day. I'm looking pretty fresh.
Yeah, well, good for you. We'll move on to Major League Baseball.
You got a pretty good beard going there, Eric.
Oh, my beard's fine. It's just that everything else is kind of just who cares? It's the pandemic.
It's a shoulders up show.
Whatever. So we'll move on to Major League Baseball.
Yes.
If we can stop with the peanut gallery. We'll talk about a little bit of these minor league baseball rules that are being instituted. What's going on there, Evan?
So Major League Baseball, just makes these very grand declarations about what minor league baseball is going to do. They just institute rules, and they have to happen because minor league baseball has no players union or anything like that. So whatever Major League Baseball says happens in the minor leagues just goes. Like if teams just get contracted out of the blue for whatever reason, it's just, oh, well, your business is dead now. So we have new rules. So in all AAA leagues, they're going to have slightly larger bases with a less slippery surface.
Wait, the surface of the bags was slippery before?
Yeah.
Have you never seen a guy slip on a base?
Yeah, they're really smooth and shiny and stuff.
The only time I've ever seen a player slip on a base is when he takes an awkward step because he's trying to hit the bag before the ball hits the glove, and he kind of tweaks his knee. Yeah. But when you just run through the base, I've never seen somebody slip on it.
Yeah, no, it happens. The bases are really
frequently.
At the major league level. The bases are so shined up so they look good on TV.
Get rid of that.
It's like stepping on a glass table or something. It's just slide right off of it. So
yeah, your metal spikes also don't help there. That's not a great. There's not a lot of friction between your brand new shiny metal spikes and your shiny white base.
Especially not baseball cleats, because those if you had track spikes, you'd be fine.
Yeah, well, they don't have track spikes. They got baseball spikes.
Yeah,
those are baseball players.
Usually when players are running to step on the base, they step on the side of it.
Yeah.
So they don't slide off.
Yep.
And the bases will be bigger. I don't know how noticeable that would be, from 15 inches each side to 18.
I think that'll be somewhat noticeable. I mean, that's an extra 9 square inches.
Yeah, it's a bigger bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Let's see. On all the AA levels, there's a requirement that all 4 infielders have their cleats within the outer boundary of the infield dirt when the pitch is delivered. It's worth pointing out that this is not banning the shift. You can still have all 4 infielders on one side of the infield if you want. They just have to be on the infield dirt, right? You can't have somebody playing that sort of short right field type of deal.
Yep.
So let's see. There's a requirement that pitchers must step off the rubber to attempt a pickoff.
I thought that was already the case for a right-handed pitcher picking off to first. I thought you had to step off the rubber.
No, you're allowed to turn. You're allowed to turn and throw without coming off, without stepping. Like usually, you have to step behind the rubber. Is usually what they want for a pickoff throw. But you don't have to do that at the major league level or at the high school level. Because I mean, I never had to because I was a left-handed pitcher. But we had pitchers on our team that, as long as the back leg moves first and the front leg doesn't move, because if the front leg moves first, you're going towards home. If you turn to try to pick somebody off at that point, that's a balk. But as long as that back leg is the first one to move as you make your action to first base, it doesn't matter if you step off or not. You can turn and throw.
Got it.
Yeah. So the article, I read this from, mentioned Andy Pettit here, who I obviously never liked, mainly just because he dominated the Orioles. I think he was like 21-2 against the Orioles or something like that. Like that was unfair. Let's see. At all of the low A levels, there's a limit of 2 pickoff attempts per plate appearance. So, remember back in the old days when we used to go to games and when the pitcher would throw over 3 and 4 times in a row and everybody would start booing. Now you can't do that. So thank God.
Well, the interesting thing here, though, is that they said on the third attempt, if the runner is not thrown out, then the move will be ruled a balk and any runners will get the next base. So you can technically try a third pickoff, but you better be successful on it.
Get them. Yeah.
Which I kind of like. There's a little bit of a risk-reward system there. I mean, you can do it, and if you get them, then it's you don't actually hurt your team for it, but you better get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think we lost Eric.
Oh yeah, he said his computer took a dump.
Oh, okay. Usually that's my computer.
Yeah.
Just begging to be sent to a server farm upstate somewhere. But I guess Eric's computer decides to take a turn on the piece of crap wheel. So, let's see, a 15-second pitch clock in low A West only. I support this 100%, please. I cannot stand it when the guy gets the ball and is just looking at the catcher and then looking around and then scratching himself. And then
but will they enforce it is the question.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, please let's just move it along. Come on. It's not the pace of play; it's the pace of action. There's too much standing around. It drives me crazy. And then in low A Southeast, there's an automatic ball strike system. I don't know why they don't put this in the majors tonight.
Right? Can we at least just go ahead and put this throughout the minor leagues instead of whatever low A Southeast is?
Yeah. So you can't tell me the computers aren't ready and it's not 100% and all this kind of stuff. Oh, so you mean you're just gonna have some guy standing back there and he's gonna know better than the computer? How is that gonna be more consistent? Right? What are we even talking about here? Just let the computers do it. It's okay.
So one last thought back on the larger bases, back on the first rule change you talked about. Okay. I would assume that it's still going to be lined up so the outer edge of the base is right on the foul line. So that means that it's going to be 3 inches further toward the infield, closer to second base. Okay. So that seems like it's an advantage to the defense on infield hits because the first baseman basically can be set up 3 inches further into the infield, and so the ball will hit his glove. I mean, it's just a fraction of a second, a very small fraction of a second, but still, the ball will hit the glove a little bit sooner than it would have.
I mean, sure, that's. Yeah,
I just find that interesting.
That's that big of a deal.
Well, no, I don't honestly either. I just find it interesting because so many rules changes these days seem to be geared more toward the offense.
Well, this is geared towards the offense because it gives them a bigger bag to step on.
Right, but it also puts the defense in a position where they're a little bit closer to each other. The first baseman is 3 inches closer to the rest of the infielders.
That's negligible.
I know it's negligible, but I mean, with how close some of these calls are, that could make the difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
home plate is staying the same size. The article pointed out.
Yes.
So.
Yes, which means that Angel Hernandez still won't be able to see it properly.
Well, Angel Hernandez
there was
lost his lawsuit.
News about him.
Yeah, he lost
He
his
his
antitrust or whatever lawsuit.
His anti-discrimination
Yeah.
suit, which is why he was supposedly not allowed to lead a crew in the World Series.
And not because he's just awful at his job.
The fact that he's allowed to call games, much less playoff games, is awful.
The fact that we know his name is awful.
Yeah,
right?
It's generally not a good thing.
Yeah, you should not know names of a referee or an umpire unless you're just like you're really well versed in like people who went to your high school and like you're really proud of the referees that went to your school. You should not know the names of any professional sports or college sports referees.
Well, we know a lot of NFL referees because they're on TV all the time because they're always telling us stuff. But other than that, you're right.
Yeah, we know Angel Hernandez because he screws up all the time.
Because he blows calls left and right.
What are you even looking at? Right? Like, this has nothing to do with your skin color. It's that you keep making bad calls. Okay? It doesn't matter what you look like. If you make bad calls, you can't you can't umpire the World Series. I'm sorry. It's too bad.
Okay, so before we get to our preview, let's get a little info on our teams. Let's start with the Orioles. So it looks like the 26-man roster is complete. Anthony Santander should be good to go for tomorrow's opening day, which is obviously a good thing. He's one of the Orioles' better players. And on the flip side, Chris Davis may never be seen again because he's on the 60-day injured list, which is also a good thing because he's terrible at his job and gets paid like he's good at it. So him not doing it is probably a benefit to the team. So both Rule 5 guys, right-handed pitcher Tyler Wells and Mac Scaroller, are on the roster and must stay on or they will be returned to their original teams. That's how Rule 5 players work. Starting rotation will be John Means, Matt Harvey, Bruce Zimmerman, Jorge Lopez, and Dean Kramer. Matt Harvey, is he the number 2 or did you just happen to put him number 2?
No, he's the number 2 starter.
Yep.
He's starting on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Okay.
I'm excited. I want to see that.
I'm thrilled. I can't wait too. I wish that Felix had stayed on the team. Unfortunately, he opted out of his deal. He hadn't pitched since March 16th when he left the game after one inning pitched with some elbow soreness. I'm sorry.
So I see here that Max Scaroller is the nephew of Ben McDonald. Is Bruce Zimmerman at all related to Jordan Zimmerman?
I have no idea.
I was hoping Evan would know, but
no, I didn't look that up. Yeah,
I'm disappointed in your journalistic or lack of journalism, I should say.
Well, I originally just had everybody's last name. I had Means, Harvey, Zimmerman, Lopez, Kramer, but then it made it seem like Hunter Harvey was in the rotation.
I would have asked that question.
He's never. It's always something happens to him. He's got an oblique. He's on the 60-day injured list. So he'll be back in like June or something.
Yeah. And last bit of information: the Orioles traded for Cleveland's Adam Plutko and designated Yolmer Sanchez for assignment. He was a middle infielder. Mm-hmm. All right, Corey, tell us some stuff about your Yankees.
Yeah, so the big thing there is with the opener tomorrow against Toronto in New York, Aaron Judge is traveling to New York with the team. They're saying that the reason he's been out for the past several days is because he's been under the weather and had to clear protocols. So assuming that is the case, sounds like Judge is good to go, which is big news for the Yankees as they get started with this season because Judge has dealt with so many injuries in the past. I mean, it just felt like this is going to be another one of those years. But it seems like everybody's pretty healthy for the most part coming into this season. The players who aren't healthy, we already knew that we'd be without them at some point, and all of them seem to be at least on track for their returns. Guys like Luis Severino, who seems to be tracking for a midsummer return, if not sooner, depending on how his next few bullpen sessions go and what he can do in the minor leagues. And the pitching rotation is pretty much fleshed out at this point. It's going to be Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, Domingo Germán, Jordan Montgomery, and Jameson Taillon. There'll be the starting rotation, but Davy Garcia will be in Scranton on standby for the Yankees to pull up for an occasional 6th start. They're planning to have at least one 6th start in April, and it'll probably be a fairly regular thing through the season. Garrett Cole is the only person who Brian Cashman said will be, kept on his schedule throughout the year. Pretty much everybody else could be bumped for a Garcia spot start from time to time just to keep the arms fresh.
Yeah, you're not going to bump your $324 million man who has to carry your rotation because the rest of your pitchers aren't that good until Severino gets back.
It'll be interesting, though, to see. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, though, how long that lasts. Like, it just being Cole who's kept on that rotation because, Corey Kluber has been dominant in the past, and if he is fully healthy, he could be really good this year. Domingo Germán has been really good in the past, and obviously, you just said
Eric's
Severino.
Making faces.
Kluber
has been good in the past, right?
Yeah.
Maybe dominant is slightly overstating it, but he was very good, and
he was good.
I couldn't hit off of him in the show, so.
Yeah, he was great like 4 or 5 years ago, but he hasn't even looked good this spring. Like, what are we getting excited for?
I'm not saying I'm excited about it. I'm just saying, like, we'll see what happens with some of these guys.
Okay.
Has Kluber shown a second facial expression in his time with the Yankees? Because he's usually just
I don't think he has one.
That's why they call him the Klubot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on the Yankees. I'm excited for opening day tomorrow against the Blue Jays. Excited to get this World Series run underway.
Yeah, we'll see about that. So we'll get to our Major League Baseball preview. We're going to go division by division, talk about each team a little bit, make a prediction for each division winner, and then we'll do wild cards and some awards, and then we'll hop over to the American League and go from there. So we'll start in the...
I'm writing all these down. So
are you writing them in pen?
It's a season. Well, I'm writing in pencil, but the pencil has no eraser. So, yeah.
Effectively pen.
Yeah, it's a drafting pencil.
Yes. So we'll start with the NL East, and we'll start with the Atlanta Braves. How are we feeling about the Braves this year?
I think the Braves are being slept on. I think the Braves are the best team in this division, despite the Mets winning the offseason and the Nationals winning the most recent championship that had a 162-game season. So
I'm not sure how much you can say the Braves are being slept on. Pretty much every division preview that I read this week has the Braves winning the NL East.
Well, as they should, frankly. But, the sense that I got was everybody was slurping the Mets and the Phillies and stuff.
Oh, you're always going to have people who, they don't want to stick to chalk, right? They don't want to go chalk, so they're going to pick who they think has the best chance of upsetting the favorite. And if you're going to do that, then yeah, the Mets are probably that team in that division. Although I would argue the Nationals shouldn't necessarily be slept on too heavily either.
I think the Nationals finish in last place in this division.
Wow.
Whoa.
Last place. That's something.
I don't think any team with Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg and Juan Soto is going to finish in last place in the division.
Yeah, but Strasburg's got to stay healthy too.
Yeah. And Scherzer's 37.
That's true. He was injured last year as well. He hasn't been quite as good as he was in his prime because he's 37. He's still great. I'm not arguing the point, but he's not what he once was. I'm looking at the Braves, and I agree with you, Evan, that they're really good. I don't know if I would call them slept on either because they've been to the postseason the last few years, but they've got a really nice core of bats. With Acuna, Freeman, Ozzie Albies, and Marcell Ozuna. That is a brutal top four in your batting lineup. They also play the field really well. Everybody in their lineup plays good defense. The only issue I have with them is I'm a little worried about their starting pitching. Mike Soroka's injured, and I think he's going to be a big part of their plans this year. And if he can't stay healthy, that's going to limit their ability to win in the series when they're later in their rotation. I could see that costing them some games. But I still think they're absolutely one of the better teams in the National League, and I expect them to be right there in the mix in the pennant race.
The Braves have young starter Ian Anderson, who
I'm looking forward to watching him
supposed
play.
To be, the next big thing.
He had a really nice season last year in the abbreviated 2020 season. So yeah, you're right. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Partially because he's on my fantasy team, but also because I like to see young pitchers come up, new blood, see what goes on.
Yeah. Braves fans have some opinions about starting pitching, I tell you. that.
Oh, yeah.
They have some opinions.
Yes.
Starting
So I'm going strictly alphabetical order here. So we'll move on to the Miami Marlins. Evan, you seem to think that they're going to finish ahead of the Nats. So why are you feeling the Marlins?
I think they're moving in the right direction with their sort of rebuild. Derek Jeter has made a lot of unpopular decisions, but that's what happens when you're rebuilding your team. They hired Kim Ng, who's overqualified to be their GM. So she's gonna crush it. And maybe the Marlins have a little magic going. They named their stadium Lone Depot Park or something like that.
What?
Yeah. Lone Depot was one word, and then the L in Lone and the P in Park are lowercase.
Okay.
That's the most interesting thing about the Marlins.
Right. I mean, well,
especially since they got rid of the home run sculpture.
Yeah,
and they got rid of the aquariums behind home plate.
I'm good with them getting rid of the sculpture because that thing was hideous. But why'd they have to get rid of the aquariums? The aquariums
probably
cool.
cost money to maintain.
One of my favorite John Oliver jokes ever was talking about the fish in the aquariums developing post-traumatic stress disorder. No,
brains capable of developing that. Like,
no, they have very short-term memories, so I doubt it. But
yeah, their short-term memory is only about 3 minutes.
I thought it was like 5 seconds.
No, they're or maybe they're long-term.
Or at least goldfish, or anyway.
They're pretty dumb.
The Marlins.
The guy the Marlins got from the Phillies for JT Real Muto, I think it's Sixto Sanchez.
Yeah, Sixto Sanchez. So they have some decent starting pitching between him, Lopez, and Alcantara, but they also lost Jose Urania. They lost Brandon Kinsler this offseason. And
Brian Anderson done. No.
I don't think that they really built up enough to get them out of the basement of this division. I think they finished last in the NL East. Nothing about the Marlins really makes me that excited.
I'm not saying I'm excited. I'm not excited.
But the only thing that has me excited is their new GM.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kim Ng as well. We talked about her on the show. Yeah. The Marlins just they can't hit. Like, that's their big issue is they don't have any bats. I agree that their starting pitching looks pretty good. Looks like it's going to be solid for them. Their bullpen is
trash.
Yeah, their bullpen's cheeks. There's no way around that. Their bullpen's going to be terrible.
So if they can't score, they're going to lose. They'll be in every game until the 6th inning, and then they'll lose.
But they play the Nationals 19 times, whose bullpen is also trash.
That's true. But I would say that the Marlins, I agree with you, Evan. They're making strides, and I think that Kim Ng is going to kill it down there. But she hasn't really had an opportunity to do so yet, and so she's still working.
0 games.
That's my point. She's done what she can, which is pretty much nothing so far. I mean, she's been there for like a few months. So, I mean, what's she supposed to do? But anyway, I think they will be finishing last place, but I do expect to see some improvement based off of the typical Marlins track. Obviously, last year being what it was, where they actually made the playoffs and got to the second round. So credit to them for that. But hey, I don't see it this year. But we'll move on.
Tarnish their perfect postseason series record, though.
The thrill is gone. The thrill is gone. Anyway, we'll move on to the next team, the New York Mets. Meet the Mets. Evan, you have thrown down on the Mets, saying that they are not worthy of challenging for the NL East.
I mean, they'll challenge for it, but they'll come up short. Like the Mets, they have a dark cloud over them. Like, bad stuff just happens to the Mets. It's true. It's just how it works with them. But they have so much talent up there. They got a star player. Now, if they finally decide to extend Francisco Lindor, I don't know what they're waiting on. They should really just give him a blank check, if you ask me, but it's not my money. So they have a good lineup. They have good pitchers. They have DeGrom. What's his name? The guy with the hair. Thor.
Syndergaard?
Syndergaard, yes. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So, I think
What
all
was
their
what was
flashy
Marcus
moves-
Stroman's injury last year? Because
Thought he just
didn't he
opted
get
out.
hurt? Oh, he
He
just
out.
opted out.
He
Okay.
opted out because of COVID. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think all their flashy moves will actually amount to something, unlike the team we're going to talk about next.
I think yeah. I mean, I like the moves that the Mets made this offseason. Bringing in Francisco Lindor, I think was a good addition at shortstop. Carlos Carrasco is a good pitcher. I think Taijuan Walker is good enough as a deep rotation man for them. And I mean, they've got probably the best pitcher in the National League in DeGrom. So, I think that defensively the Mets are going to be fine. I don't know as much about their offense. I don't know if they really have the offense to win games when their starting pitching isn't up to snuff. But their pitching should keep them in enough games that, I think that they can certainly be in the conversation.
They're going to score runs.
Yeah, they are.
They're going to have Lindor and Jeff McNeil at the top of their lineup, and
Pete Alonso as
Pete
well.
Alonso with his thunder thighs driving them in.
Yeah, and
they're going to score some runs.
Michael Conforto and Brandon Nimmo can hit as well. They definitely got their share at bats. This is a pretty well-balanced team. I think that they are absolutely going to be in the mix for the NL East. And their pitching is great. And that's the reason why I'm more optimistic for the Mets is because I think they're going to be good, even considering the fact that bad things happen to the Mets. Namely, their pitchers always get hurt because Carlos Carrasco is starting the season probably reasonably healthy. I realize that he's day to day right now, but when you look at Carlos Carrasco, you expect maybe you get half a season out of him. Well, you're probably going to get more than that, or at least it looks like you will. And then Noah Syndergaard's going to come back later in the season, so he's not really a big part of what makes them look good right now come opening day. And so those guys being around and being reasonably healthy later in the season is going to be a big help to a team that's already looking pretty good. So I like the Mets a lot this year. And so we'll round out the NL East, or actually not round out. We've got one more team or two more teams. We got the Washington Nationals to talk about. The Nationals. How are we feeling, Evan? Last place. Why? Why you hating?
I mean, I feel like their contending window has closed. They're like the Royals after they won the World Series a couple years later. They had all the same guys, but they just weren't squeezing as much juice out of it. So,
Right.
Everybody's a year older or gone in the case of Harper and Rendon. Strasburg is back to being the Orchid. There's something wrong with him. It's going to be chilly the first month and a half or so. It's always something with him. And then, I have questions about Corbin despite drafting him on one of my fantasy teams. And their bullpen is hot garbage. Once again, they won the World Series with the worst bullpen in baseball in 2019.
Well, that was such a miraculous
Right.
run.
Their bullpen was worse than the Orioles' bullpen.
They should have lost 3 different times. I mean, they were down in elimination games 3 separate times late, and they still won the World Series. So credit to them for clawing and getting it done. But that was definitely you went and grabbed that one, even though you probably had no business winning it.
That's why I feel like Evan is sleeping. I think a lot of people are sleeping a little bit on the Nationals because they don't necessarily need to have a great bullpen to still be competitive in the regular season. I'm not sitting here saying that the Nationals are a team that I would consider putting in the World Series, but I don't think that their chances of winning the NL East are 0 or even close to 0. I would put their chances of winning this division at minimum over 10%. I mean,
there's 5 teams. There should be 20% if they were.
Well, no, because I don't give the Phillies or the Marlins even 10% of a chance. Because I think that the Braves and the Mets take up a pretty significant portion of it. But I would put the Nationals at least in the 10 to 15% range, and maybe close to 20%. They brought in Kyle Schwarber, who I think is a good pickup. Brad Hand and John Lester, I think, are decent arms in the pitching staff. Steven Strasburg, if he can stay healthy, is going to turn give them a really good trio of starting pitchers. Juan Soto has to be in the conversation for NL MVP. I don't know if he necessarily wins it, but he's at the very minimum in the conversation. They've got other good offensive players. Trey Turner, all he does is get on base and then steal bases. That's all he does. They've got too many weapons on that team to not be in the conversation. I don't know if they pull it out, but to say, to just say this is a two-team race between the Braves and the Mets, or even saying it's a one-team race where it's just one of the two of those teams, I think is completely disrespectful to a very good Nash team that can still contend in the division.
I don't see them contending for this division.
I don't see it either. I look at their starting rotation, and obviously their top three is great. There's no doubt Strasburg and Scherzer and Patrick Corbin's pretty good too. But then after that, it falls off. They used to have better back of the rotation guys, but they're relying on John Lester's corpse and Joe Ross, who they never actually let pitch. They just kind of put him out there. I
think he pitched against the Orioles one time, and I was so excited that he was going to pitch against the Orioles, and the Orioles lit him up, and it was great.
Yeah, that's what happens to Joe Ross. So, and I don't really see a whole lot of firepower here outside of, Juan Soto. Trey Turner gets on base. Sure, he's a good hitter, and Kyle Schwarber's he's an effective bat, but I don't see anything outside of that three. Victor Robles can't hit. Yan Gomes can't hit. Alex Avila can't hit. Josh Bell can hit a little bit, but, he's not that good, and he can't field to save his life. Starlin Castro is washed. There's just nothing here outside of that top three. They just look like they're going to be relying on those three guys, which means their offense is probably going to be pretty average. They don't have any good defenders, really, outside of Victor Robles. Trey Turner is basically a white version of Derek Jeter, except not nearly as good of a hitter. He can't play a lick of defense. Juan Soto's been terrible his entire career playing left field. He's out there because he has to be. He would be a DH.
But there's no DH.
No, he has to play the field too, so that's another bad defender. Josh Bell can't defend to save his life. Starlin Castro's an error machine. They're going to give back a lot of runs with their crappy defense. So I see an average group of position players and a really good starting rotation and a pretty mediocre bullpen. To me, I think they finish above 500, but they're not as good as the Mets or the Braves. Not by it's significantly. They're significantly less than those teams. They are 2 steps below.
This sounds like a 72-90-ish team.
I still give their rotation enough credit for them to win 82 games. I think they win 82. That's my Nats prediction is 82 games.
Oh.
So we'll move up to
next.
Yeah, they're up next. We'll move to up I-95 to the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't really care for them that much, but Corey, you think they're going to be any good? You feeling Phillies?
Maybe? They added some good arms to their bullpen this offseason, so they shouldn't give up too many runs in the latter parts of games. The problem is, I think they're going to give up a lot of runs earlier in games because I don't think that their starting pitching is that good. I didn't pay close attention to the Phillies last year, so I don't know how Jake Arrieta has been recently. But Jake
Arrieta's
on the Cubs now.
I know, but he was with them, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Last season, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know how big of a loss that is, but they lost him, right? So
I think it might be enough.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think that they have much in the way of bats, so I don't think they're going to score a ton of points. Or runs. So I don't know that adding those arms in the bullpen is going to move the needle for them. It's been a decade since they've posted a winning season. I think we're going to start I think we're going to start a second decade of that this year. I don't think that they. I'd be surprised if they won 80 games.
I thought with the Phillies that Gabe Kapler was holding them back, and I still think that. Now they got rid of him, but they spent all this money. They brought in Bryce Harper, and they did they extend Real Muto? Has that happened?
I don't know if they've extended him. I know he's on the team this year.
Okay, well they're kind of committed to extending him at this point if they haven't yet.
Yeah.
They have Rhys Hoskins, and they paid Jake Arrieta, and then they got rid of him. So they spent all this money to have this apparently great team, and then it just hasn't materialized. Like they're a team that's supposed to win, then they just don't. So, whether it's blowing games against the Orioles by dropping pop-ups or something like that, like what are the Phillies doing? They seem to have, they seem to have, used up all their energy, and now they have nothing left. Like this is their final form. I don't see how they improve at all. So Bryce Harper's going to be great and everything, but like he's one guy. And he's not going to be 2015 Bryce Harper. Like, that guy's never coming back. But he's certainly going to be a well above average type of player. But, you need 8 others and a pitching staff. You have Nola, but, you need more than just him. So I don't see it from the Phillies. I think they'll settle in third place comfortably.
Yeah, this team screams average to me. I mean, they've got Bryce Harper at the top as their best player, and then JT Realmuto is obviously really good right behind him. But to me, Rhys Hoskins just hasn't been – like, he was so good a couple of years ago that I thought he was going to be, like, the next big thing. And he's still a very good player, but he's just not quite what I expected him to be at this point. Maybe he'll take a leap, but I'm not quite there with him. I feel a little disappointed. Corey's boy, Didi Gregorius, while Corey loves him, Didi's kind of regressed into being a sort of average-ish player, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being an average Major League Baseball player. That's still pretty good. Mm-hmm. Gene Segura is not that good. I mean, Andrew McCutcheon is washed up. He could still hit a little bit, but his defense has gone downhill. I see an average-ish lineup with an average rotation. Aaron Nola's good. Zach Wheeler's good. Everybody else is mediocre. They got nobody after their top 3. They got like Matt Moore. God.
Is that the former Tampa Bay Ray Matt Moore, that guy?
Yeah. Okay. He's not very good. And some guy named Chase Anderson. It's a whole lot of mediocrity out after you get past Nola and Wheeler. The rotation's bad. The bullpen, it'll be better, but still won't be great. It's just not a good team. And I can't say I'm disappointed because I have no real stake in the Phillies. I don't care if they're good or not, but they were supposed to be a team that was building into something big. They signed Bryce Harper, and now they're just the same old 500 team or slightly below 500 team that they've been the last few years. I think they finished in 4th place. Okay, so that wraps up all of our wonderful NL East teams. So I'll start with Corey. Who do you have winning in this division?
I went with the Mets.
Oh. All right.
Okay. Evan, what about you?
Atlanta Braves.
Easy. All right. I decided to go with the Mets as well.
Oh, my.
Kind of disappointed that Corey did because I wanted to be that guy.
Is this going to be like your Lions pick to win the NFC North?
Oh my God. Oh, my God. Please, no. Please let that not be.
But this is probably even more likely to go that way than we thought the Lions pick was, just because we know that bad things happen to the Mets, so it wouldn't shock us.
Yeah, but baseball talent usually wins out. The Lions, I only picked them purely because it looked like everybody else just sucked, and then the Packers got good. So, football is always full of surprises. Baseball is a little more chalky.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to the NL Central. And again, I hate this division so much.
I hate this division too. I hate all the teams in it. They're so boring.
They're so bad too. Nobody's good. We'll start with the Milwaukee Brewers.
It's funny you say it, because as we're starting with the Brewers, this is this is a team that I don't know why, but I've always wanted to be able to root for them. But ever since the news about Ryan Braun and the PEDs came out, I can't root for the Brewers. Well, guess who's gone?
He's not there.
Ryan Braun is gone now, so I can actually be happy for the Brewers if they do well this year. I like Christian Yelich. Baseball's Pete Davidson.
That's rude. That's rude.
How is that rude?
Because Pete Davidson's not everybody's cup of tea.
I love Pete Davidson.
I do too, but a lot of people would find that a little bit mean to compare somebody, especially because of the way he looks.
There's nothing wrong with the way he looks.
I mean,
They're just doppelgangers. That's all.
Well,
Anyway,
Davidson and Christian Yelich look exactly like each other, except for when they're standing side by side. And they don't look alike at all.
True.
Yeah, if you're looking at them side by side, Christian Yelich is the one who looks slightly
can we
more
get back
like
to the baseball, please?
Anyway, the Brewers also brought on Colton Wong, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Travis Shaw, which I think were really good additions for them. I think that this is a good team. The big question that I've seen raised by experts is, can their bullpen, which pitched really well last year in a shortened season, maintain that over an additional 102 games? If they can, I think that this might be the best team of the division. They should at least be competing for the top spot, I think.
Well, everybody's competing for it because nobody's actually good. It's like the NFC East.
Yeah, but there are some teams that are just downright putrid.
Yeah, like the Pirates, but we'll get to them later.
Poor Pirates. I also like to root for the Pirates, but God, they're so bad.
Okay.
I have no
give me some
confidence in
upside.
the Brewers. They can't hit.
No.
Their pitchers are aight. That's it. They're one of the 5 dull and boring teams that I won't be switching to in my MLB TV this season. So, it's just a big yawn from the Brewers, really.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that they managed to put together a team that outside of Christian Yelich can absolutely not hit. I mean, nobody in their lineup is somebody I would say, oh, yeah, that guy, he's all right at the plate. They all stink. I mean, Colton Wong can't hit. Lorenzo Cain can't hit anymore. I mean, Travis Shaw, really? I mean, Jackie Bradley Jr. is a great defender, but he's never been either. That's why he's not in Boston anymore. He can't hit. I mean, this team definitely has some good defenders, but when was the last time you saw a team win just because they've got good gloves, but they can't hit and their pitching's okay? It doesn't happen unless, of course, you play in a crappy division where it's anybody's game because it might only take 82 wins to win the division. But,
it might not take 82 wins.
Yeah, it might be 80 or 78 or something like that. But, I mean, Brandon Woodruff's pretty good.
65 wins.
Dude, at that point, we need to talk about the NL Central and make it go away. Mm-hmm. But Brandon Woodruff is a good, solid starter. But do I feel super confident with him as my ace? I don't know. Corbin Burns is pretty good too. I mean, the rotation actually is pretty solid. It's not great. It doesn't blow my mind like the Dodgers or somebody like that, but it's pretty good. And they got Josh Hader out of the bullpen. He's probably the most electric relief pitcher in all of baseball right now. So that provides them a little bit of something. They'll be in games, but I worry about the offense. I don't see it. It's going to be Christian Yelich getting intentionally walked all the time because nobody else can hit.
It's worth pointing out that the Brewers were in the playoffs last year. I think they were the number 8 seed. And they were unceremoniously bounced by the Dodgers.
Yep.
That's how that worked out.
It was not a pretty performance by any means. So we'll continue the slog through the NL Central. We'll upgrade from boring to super boring. We'll talk about the St. Louis Cardinals.
Ugh. I hate the Cardinals. I really do. Nolan Arenado was such a fun player when he was on the Rockies. Now he's on the Cardinals. It's just... Oh, the Cardinals' uniforms are so dull, and their stadium is so bland, and everything about the Cardinals just bores me to death. They're always 82 to 87 wins every year. That's what you can count on. They're never super awful to make them interesting, and they're never 105 wins to make them interesting. It's just the same stuff every time with the Cardinals, and I'm exhausted with the Cardinals. So they'll probably win this division. They'll probably be okay. I think, don't they have Jack Flaherty? Who's that guy who was throwing 106 miles an hour, and then he had Tommy John surgery? Was that Jack Flaherty or somebody else?
I think that was him.
Yeah, I think it was him too.
Is he related to Ryan Flaherty?
No idea.
I would be surprised.
Yeah, Wainwright is coming back for his 500th season or something like that. So. It's the same Cardinals as before. Just another yawn.
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank the Cardinals for Luke Voigt. I also want to, curse the Cardinals for giving the Rays Randy Arozarena. Um, Nothing about the Cardinals makes me at all excited about them. Nolan Arenado is a good third baseman. He'll serve them well. Paul Goldschmidt I think will be just fine this year, but outside of them, I don't know how much they really have that's gonna. I I don't know that the Cardinals are necessarily the team that would win this division.
I mean, I know
So
better than
who that is then?
yeah. I would never count out the Cardinals just because they always seem to win. But yeah, there's nothing here to draw any inspiration. They can't hit. They've got great defense, but again, we talked about that a little bit with the Brewers. Although I think the Cardinals' defense is significantly better. This might be the best defensive team in all of baseball. But pitching, it's pretty good. Again, it's typical Cardinals. I mean, I guess it really depends on how effective Wainwright is. Jack Flaherty is obviously going to be the top of the line guy on the team. Carlos Martinez had a lot of buzz around him. I remember he was the ace of the Dominican team during the World Baseball Classic, and he hasn't shown me much since then. I mean, it just looks like your everyday average Joe team, which means, of course, they're going to go to the playoffs because that's what they do.
I mean, I feel like if the Cardinals win this division, it's gonna be by default. It's not gonna be because they won it. It's gonna be because the other four teams lost it.
Yeah, that's going to be the case for anybody that wins this division because all these teams stink.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move to the Cubbies, the team that has just been a perpetual disappointment since they won the World Series. What do you got on them, Corey?
I mean, hopefully Chris Bryant can do well, especially because I'm pretty sure I got him on my fantasy team. So hopefully he does well. Javier Baez is a good player for them. But I don't know what they've got in their starting rotation behind Hendricks and Davies. So
You got Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, Jake Arrieta.
they did add Jake Arrieta. So and they added Jacques Peterson on defense. If Chris Bryant and Javier Baez get back to form this year, the Cubs could make some noise. But losing Yu Darvish and losing Kyle Schwarber doesn't help their case. So I don't know. I think this could be an interesting team. Just kind of lost in the shuffle of a very boring division. I think I also have Ian Happ on my team, so hopefully he does well.
Eric,
Evan?
you said an evergreen statement about the Cubs being a disappointment since they won the World Series. It's been the case with them, really since 1909, basically.
Except for that 1 year.
Except for 2016. Right?
Well,
other than
20
that, I've heard the Cubs is described as, well, anybody can have a bad century.
Yeah, we just got to wait for 23.
Yeah, 21-24 when they win again. Then they'll be good. The Cubs suck. I don't want to see them anymore. Anthony Rizzo's trending down. Chris Bryant's trending down. Javier Baez was absolutely terrible last year, offensively anyway. Jason Hayward's been a disappointment, and their starting rotation is bleh, right? Like they have Hendricks, who's a soft tosser, and Zach Davies, who doesn't throw hard. Like all their starting pitchers are just carbon copies of the same guy. So they're going to get rocked, on a regular basis. I have no confidence in them. I don't know what they're doing. Then Theo Epstein, they didn't fire him. He quit. He just left. So, the Wrigley Field's beautiful. That's all they have going for them. That's it. That's the list.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think this team isn't very good, but I think that maybe they have the most upside among the teams here because they have some guys that at least were good recently. I'm not sure if Chris Bryant's going to bounce back. He's been trending down for the last few years. I do think Javier Baez will bounce back. He had 2 great years before last year's 60-game season where he was just an absolute debacle at the plate. Mm-hmm. But I'm willing to give him a mulligan for that. It's such a strange season and you don't really know how that's going to affect people. He did also have complaints about the fact that they took away the video scouting in the dugout, which of course affected everybody, but he seemed particularly bent about it. Maybe that'll get him back in the groove and get him back to performing like a superstar, but we'll see. The pitching, oh man, the pitching's just brutal. And Kyle Hendricks was pretty good at a time. I think that the league's kind of caught up to him a little bit, although I still think he's effective. Zach Davies, I wish he pitched for the Orioles because he'd probably be their best guy outside of John Means, but we traded him
up
away
for a ham sandwich.
Yes, half a year of Gerardo Parra, and we didn't even get Baby Shark to go with it. But
I think the Orioles won if they,
that's probably
no
true.
Baby Shark.
That's fair. No Baby Shark, but we gave up Zach Davies. Might have been worth it.
Did Baby Shark even exist in 2015?
No. Okay. No, I don't think it did. But Jake Arrieta, maybe he has a weird thing where he's like Nick Foles, where he only plays well in one uniform. But I doubt it because he was trending down with the Cubs even before he parted ways and signed with the Phillies. I think he's just done at this point. He had his brief moment of greatness like for a little while after he left the Orioles, and I think he's just on the downswing. But I do stand by my statement that there is more upside with this team than anybody else in the division just because they've got guys that have done it before and they're still relatively young. I mean, Chris Bryant is not old. He should not be aging out. I can't explain why he's just not that good anymore, but maybe he'll figure it out. We'll see what happens.
Baby Shark came out November 26, 2015, so just shortly after the 2015.
The bane of my existence.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the Pirates. I honestly don't have much to say about the Pirates. I don't think you guys do either. They're going to stink. But I will.
They're 2 years away from competitiveness at minimum. Like best case scenario.
2 years away, like the Phoenix Suns.
They're like the Pirates are like 7 or 8 years away. They
very well could be. They very well could be.
So I've got just one question for you, just to throw a curveball in here. The Pirates have to have an all-star selection. Who do you think it's going to be?
Give me Kid Brian Hayes.
Yeah, I was going to say him too.
This is the name a pirate exercise, and he's the only one I know, despite the Orioles playing the Pirates 8 times in 28 spring training games.
Well, they brought in Trevor Cahill, who I've heard of, but that's the only name I could name off the top of my head.
Yeah, Brian Hayes had a really nice year last year in his first season.
Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year, didn't he?
Maybe.
Or no, wait. No, he's still rookie eligible this year, right?
I don't know how that works.
I don't think he played enough.
I'm pretty sure you can win Rookie of the Year multiple times because Buck Martinez won it twice.
Did he?
Well,
that's one of the stories about him is that he.
Yeah, but I don't think Brian Hayes won it last year. I think I forget who it was. Because wasn't it a player?
Computer.
I want to say it was a player for the Dodgers, but I don't think it was.
Well, Hayes played 24 games last year. He made 95 plate appearances, so he still is rookie eligible.
Right, and that wouldn't be enough for him to have won Rookie of the Year last year.
Probably not, because that's less than half the season.
Yeah,
but he did bat 376.
Rookie of the Year last year was someone named Devin Williams of the Brewers.
I think he played for the Brewers.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, in that 24-game stretch, Brian Hayes accumulated 1.6 wins above replacement. So, wow. I mean, if you prorate that, that's an MVP type of season. But we're not going to do that here. We're just going to say he's going to be their default all-star.
Okay.
Yeah. The Pirates are a woeful disaster. Let's move on.
Yes, they are. Let's move on to the Reds, who are not quite as disastrous, but again, just who cares about the Reds?
I don't.
Yeah, I have to apologize because I didn't do as much research into the Reds as I probably should have, as there's a drive into deep left field by Castellanos, and so that'll make it a 4-0 ball game.
There it is. I knew we were going to work that in there somewhere, and Corey got to deliver it, so credit to Corey Hat-Tip for that joke.
I expected that, and I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, They lost Trevor Bauer. They added Sonny Gray, who's day to day and not really that great of a pitcher anyway.
Always hurt. Always hurt.
Yeah. they'll probably finish ahead of the Pirates, but that's about all that I can say for the Reds.
Maybe they'll hang a banner, finished ahead of the Pirates. That can be that can go right next to the Big Red Machine World Series banners. I'm sure Johnny Bench would love to see that.
I don't have anything to say about the Reds. They're another bland, boring team. I just won't watch them. Their pitchers have to hit this season. That's going to make it even worse. Just unbearable, this division.
Yeah, the only thing the Reds have is a decent starting rotation. Everything else is bad.
They have Amir Garrett, who's fun.
Yeah, and Luis Castillo is a legit ace. I think he's pretty good, but beyond that, let's move on to another division. But first, we got to pick the winner of this crappy one. Who do you got, Evan?
Cardinals.
Corey?
Brewers.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Cubs. Jeez.
What?
Yeah, Cubs.
What?
I don't hate that pick.
That is absurd to me.
You picked the Cardinals. I mean, these teams all stink.
The Cardinals clearly stink the least.
I wouldn't say that. I think the Cardinals are just
it.
like the default. They're, when you go in to put the drop down menu to pick which team is going to win, the Cardinals are already filled in just automatically. You have to click the drop down to pick the other ones. That's all that is.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe that explains how they win the division. The other teams saw the other team's name in there and just thought, oh, well, we can't win it, so let's not try. All right, so we'll move on to the NL West. We'll start with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who, again, not really feeling them, but they got some players that might be interesting. What do you guys think?
I don't have high expectations for the Diamondbacks. They're like the Washington Generals, just the team that the Globetrotters are going to play 19 times or 38 times now. The Diamondbacks. I'm not going to be staying up late to watch them a whole lot, to tell you that.
But they've got Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, he's not good anymore.
Yeah, he's not good anymore.
He's still as angry as he always was, but he's not very good at pitching anymore.
No, I mean that can be interesting sometimes.
Yeah, like when Max Muncy hits a bomb off of him.
Yeah,
then yeah.
Go get it out of the ocean. One of the great moments of all time.
Put it on his shirt. That's
right.
wonderful.
It was on a shirt.
Yes. Other than Ketel Marte, I'm not seeing anything here. I mean,
you'll get to see a whole lot of full counts late in ball games when they bring Tyler Clippard in out of the bullpen, because he always goes to 3-2 counts against everybody.
He's there. Oh, well, maybe I'll watch him get lit up and make weird faces. That'd be cool.
Yes.
God,
and have somebody leaping into the stands to save a home run, off of Manny Machado, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, is this Dribble Cabrera any good still?
No.
Yeah. He's pretty washed.
Yeah, because he was one of their additions this year. The Diamondbacks don't really fascinate me that much. They'll be contending for last place in the division.
They do have Christian Walker.
Yeah, Christian Walker's there.
He's
had a decent career for them.
Yeah. So we'll move on to hopefully somebody actually interesting. Actually, it is somebody interesting. The Los Angeles Dodgers, defending champions, and they somehow got better. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers this year, Corey?
I mean, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on how you would say they got better, because they did lose both Jock Peterson and Kike Hernandez, and those are those are good players. I don't think that you just absorb that loss with absolutely no regression at all. But yeah, I mean, this is still a really good team. There's no doubt about it. This, they're not necessarily a lock to win 100 games, but they're as close to a lock as there is in all of baseball to do so. It would be really difficult to knock them off of the pedestal atop this division.
I wasn't sure you were serious when you talked about how, you can't feel a regression when you lose Jock Peterson and Kike Hernandez. These guys are role players, right? Kike Hernandez is one of my favorite players.
They play important roles, though, with them.
Fun to watch, but
they played important roles with the team.
I think they can absorb the loss of Kike Hernandez and only hits right-handers Jock Peterson just fine. I think they can figure it out. Their starting rotation is loaded. Like their Hall of Fame
your team
pitcher,
has like half of the left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, so Jock Peterson doesn't have to face any of them.
Well, he's gone, so yeah. The Hall of Fame starting pitcher Kershaw, like he's their number 3 in the rotation or something like that. Walker Buehler's incredible. Dustin May is incredible. Corey Seager's there. Mookie Betts is certainly on a Hall of Fame trajectory. The Dodgers have a great farm system as well. Whether or not they win 100 games, I can't imagine saying they're going to win less than 100.
I think the biggest argument to make against the Dodgers would be that some of their top players have injury histories, and now we're returning from a 60-game season to 162, and will all of them stand up to that? Clayton Kershaw has had back injuries in the past. Walker Buehler has had some issues. Julio Urias has had a shoulder injury. Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, Justin Turner have all spent time on the injured list during their careers. So, if, as these guys get older, if those injuries all start to happen simultaneously, they're going to be in a lot of hurt.
Yeah, I think obviously that's the worst case scenario for any team, but
sure, but with this team, you look at those injury possibilities as, maybe not even just a worst case scenario, as at least a couple of them are probably going to suffer an injury. The worst case scenario would be all of them at the same time, yes, but chances are at least a couple of them, if not more, will deal with injuries at some point during the season. And that is going to, that would be the thing that could prevent them from winning 100 games. They're still going to be competitive in the division and probably win it, even with that.
Yeah, I think that those injury concerns are baked in, which is why I would say that if they don't get injured, they're going to win 110 games. Like 100
sure,
wins
I would
includes the fact that people are likely to miss some time. This team is loaded, and they absolutely got better. They gave up 2 role players and got the best pitcher in the National League last year in Trevor Bauer. They also get David Price back for this season, and he's going to primarily be used out of the bullpen. So even though he's a little bit older, his role has changed back to something that it was back in the early day of his career, which, by the way, he was tremendous at out of the bullpen pitching for the Rays as a rookie.
World Series.
Yes, he was fantastic in that role. So they have added 2 great arms to their team at the expense of 2 okay bats leaving. That is absolutely an upgrade. I mean, this team won, 104 games back in 2019. They won 108 games or something crazy like that in 2017. And all of these guys had the same injury concerns back then as well. I think 100 games is the checkpoint that I think they will absolutely achieve. Without question, I think they're going to win this division. This team is just unbelievably stacked.
And their farm system is good, too. And, they're analytically driven as well. Not only do they have the most money, but they also have the most brains as well. It's just insane.
It's a great combination to be able to pay everybody and also be able to get the best guys so that they start with you. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Okay, so we'll talk about the San Francisco Giants next. Okay, we can move on for the Giants. I'm just kidding.
Pretty much.
Maybe we can.
Kevin Gausman is their opening day starting pitcher. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Giants.
Yikes.
Okay.
I think he's going to have a nice year.
Probably, but he's also
the type of guy. Ace.
Yeah. He's also the type of guy you have to worry about him getting whiplash as the ball zooms by his head over and over.
Well, at least he's in a very pitcher-friendly park. The most pitcher-friendly park in all of baseball.
Yeah, but, he might end up in a go-get-it-out-of-the-ocean situation.
Well, hopefully he's not screaming at people. I can't see Gausman acting like that.
I don't think he's that type of guy, but,
Nah.
Somebody's going to have to go get the ball out of the ocean. Whether or not anybody screams that back at him is a different story.
Yeah. Giants scream mediocre to me. I think we can move on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
All right, so
does them getting Buster Posey back change anything? Like, is he still effective at this point in his career?
I mean, if he can get his back going again, then he's going to be an all-star because I still think he's a tremendous catcher, but he hasn't hit well. Of course, he didn't play at all last year. He opted out due to COVID, probably partially because the Giants sucked, and he figured, what the hell's the point? But he had a really bad year in 2019, and he wasn't very good in 2018 either.
So that's
there's a
kind of my
distinct
thought.
2 years where it's trending down from being a very good hitter to being a slightly above average hitter to being a really bad hitter. And he's in his 30s. He's got a lot of innings on him. I hope he can get it back because I think Buster Posey's awesome, but he's just I wouldn't count on it.
And they can't DH him either. Like back in 2019 when he was playing, like he was splitting time with Belt at first base.
Yeah, but they can't do that now because Belt's got to play every day.
Yeah, but now they have to have Belt in the lineup somewhere. And Posey can't catch every game.
Nope.
Or, I mean, nobody catches every game, but like he can't catch nearly as often as he did before. So, they basically have 1.5 guys with Belt and Posey together. So it's not there.
Yeah, it feels like Buster Posey would be better served on an AL team where he can get some DH games too.
Yeah.
But he's not there right now, so that's it for the Giants. Let's move to the Padres, who I think we're all pretty excited to see.
Yeah.
Are we feeling maybe they're a little overhyped, or we think it's justified? How are we feeling about these guys?
I think if people are saying that they, could unseat the Dodgers, then yeah, that's probably a little bit overhype playing in. But I mean, this is going to be a really fun, really good team. They brought in Yu Darvish and Blake Snell and Joe Musgrove. Those are really good pitchers. The bats are all there. I think this is a team that can provide a lot of fireworks offensively, and I think that their defense has gotten better with those pitching additions. I think that the only way they win the West is if the Dodgers lose it. But this is a team that I think absolutely can beat the Dodgers head to head, and could make some noise in the postseason.
I think all the Padres hype is appropriate. I mean, they're incredible. They're going to be fun to watch. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. You're going to have pitchers now. They got Blake Snell. They got Yu Darvish. I think they still have Clevenger, don't they? Or is he injured?
He's injured. I don't think he's going to pitch this year.
Okay. Well, they don't have him. They have Paddock, I think.
Yeah, Chris Paddock's still in the rotation, yeah.
So, they're going to have pitchers. Their bats, obviously, with Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. Maybe Eric Hosmer's going to help out a little bit or something.
Will Myers.
Will Myers. I mean, it's going to be a lot of late nights for me on the MLB.TV.
Was there an All-Star game last year? There wasn't one, right?
No.
Yeah, so because Tatis should have made it last year, that would have been his first appearance. So he should make it easily this year.
Yeah.
So, him and Manny both would have made it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the Padres. I hate their uniforms though. I know everybody's talking about the brown and yellow. I think it looks awful.
I like it enough. I mean, I don't love it, but I think it's fine. I got nothing against it.
If the only criticism we have of the Padres is their uniforms are, according to Evan, unattractive, then they're doing
No, they're not
well.
unattractive as far too kind. They're hideous. I hate them. Right. I know the blue and white they used to have was really bland and stuff, but this brown and yellow is just it's so incredibly ugly. There's a reason nobody else wears brown uniforms.
Fair enough. So my feeling on the Padres is that I actually think that I'm stunned that last year we were worried about their pitching, and now their pitching might be their strength, which is crazy because they've still got Machado and they've still got Fernando Tatis, and they've also got Trent Grisham, who's really good. Tommy Pham can hit. They've got a lot of bats in their lineup for sure, and they all play pretty good defense too. So it's a pretty complete team. I mean, I don't think they're quite as loaded as the Dodgers, but I absolutely think that they're the second best team in the National League. So that might be a little bit of a giveaway about who I'm predicting to be a wild card team, which we'll get to in a little bit once we talk about the Rockies real quick, which we don't really have to if you don't want to.
The Rockies are a complete joke.
They traded Nolan Arenado and paid somebody else to take him.
They traded for Michael Givens.
That's true. They did. They gave up a prospect that might actually be good for the Orioles for Michael Givens, which is insane.
Yeah. What are the Padres even doing? And apparently, I think it was them. They're so cheap. Like they had half of their front office staff, like people who are in baseball personnel, like do another, sort of menial work because they didn't want to pay somebody to do that. Like what? Oh God, the Rockies. I'd love to visit Coors Field, but the Rockies, just cover your eyes. This team.
Yeah, they've got Trevor Story and German Marquez. That's about it. I mean,
how long are they going to have them? Right? Everybody who's good with the Rockies ends up somewhere else, apparently.
Yeah. Corey, you got anything you want to just desperately say about the Rockies?
Initially when we were talking about the Diamondbacks at the start of this division, I was thinking, this is probably the worst team in the division. Now, I forgot about the Rockies. So the Diamondbacks might beat a team. They might beat a team.
Yeah, they're going to be duking it out with the Pirates, in my opinion, for the worst team in the National League.
Baseball.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, absolutely. So that does it for the National League. Let's get some wild card picks. What are you guys thinking?
Well, did we pick our?
Who did we officially declare as the West winners? I think we know.
I got the Dodgers.
Dodgers.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's get some wild card picks.
All
right. My wild card number 1 is the San Diego Padres.
So is mine.
Yep. Me too.
All right. My wild card number 2 is the New York Mets.
I've got the Atlanta Braves.
I got the Braves as well. We are boring.
Yeah,
except for the NL Central. The NL Central, we're all over the place.
So now suddenly the Central becomes the most interesting division in the National League.
It's still not. I don't care who
not
wins.
watching that.
Not watching that. No,
I know
no
Cardinals
way.
Cubs going to be on Sunday Night Baseball like 17 times.
All the time, and it's going to be abysmal. Nope, not tuning in for that. All right, so who do we have for National League Cy Young?
I picked Walker Buehler.
I could see that. I'm going DeGrom though.
The DeGrom leader.
I think Jacob DeGrom's the best pitcher in all of baseball, so I'm picking him too. And National League MVP?
Marcus Lynn Betts for me.
I went Acuna.
I'm going to go with Fernando Tatis.
Who, Evan, who did you say?
He said Mookie Betts.
Oh, Mookie Betts. Okay. I thought he said something like... I thought he said something else. Okay.
Those were my
Marcus
three candidates, too.
Oh, got it.
Those are my three candidates as well, with apologies to Juan Soto, who I also think is going to be great. But I just think the fact that the Nats probably won't make the playoffs this year will probably cost him a chance to compete for that.
Yeah, award. I was on the fence about him initially, and because I had also been kind of playing with the idea of putting the Nats in as my second wild card, and it's like nah.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, they're not going to beat both the Braves and the Mets. They're probably not going to beat either one, and they're definitely not going to beat out the Padres for a wild card spot. So
no. So who do you got winning the National League pennant?
I picked the San Diego Padres.
I did too.
Whoa.
Yeah, I actually did too.
Oh, well, now I feel bad for being all chalky. I'm taking the Los Angeles Dodgers.
But the last time the Dodgers rolled to first place in the NL, in 2019, remember they figured out how to blow it in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they rolled to first place last year in 2020, and they won the whole damn thing. So
but I feel like all their playoff failures are still part of their report
their DNA.
card.
Okay,
just because they won the World Series one time doesn't mean they've gotten rid of their playoff failures. I mean, look at the
but because
Braves in the
Gonzaga
90s.
has made it to and lost in the national championship one time, suddenly they've exercised their playoff demons.
Oh, that was what I said.
No, I know, but like, this is
The
tomato.
The Dodgers have made the World Series 3 out of the last 4 years. Let's not act like it was one time
Right.
that they won the National League pennant. It's been them for the most part for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, with some, epic choke jobs mixed in.
Sure. But usually that didn't happen until the World Series.
So moving to the American League.
Yes.
Not the ale.
All right, so we'll start in the AL East. We'll start with the Toronto Blue Jays. I like this team this year. Do you guys, or do you guys a bunch of haters?
I don't think they're going to be good.
You don't think they're going to be good?
No.
Damn, that's cold.
Who's pitching for them? Right? Like it's remember back in 2015 and 16 when the Orioles go up to play the Blue Jays, it'd be like 9-8 in the 4th inning. Like that's going to happen to them a lot.
Probably.
Yeah, and they still won the division that 1 year.
Yeah, like they don't have pitchers. I mean, the division was down that year, right? Like the Yankees were air quotes rebuilding, and the Red Sox were in the middle of their win the World Series, play like crap, Jekyll and Hyde type of thing. I'm not feeling the Blue Jays. I think they'll be okay, but they'll be fun.
Yeah, like I think that this is going to be an entertaining team. I think that their pitching is adequate. It's the pitching is not necessarily going to win them a lot of games, but I also don't think their pitching is going to lose them a ton of games. At least not on the front end. They have some decent starters. I mean, they brought Tanner Roark in, and they've got some other guys.
Roark.
Tanner Roark has been he was fine with the Nationals. He was fine.
That was in the light hitting National League, right? So he's in the American League where the
yes,
people
but
actually
the whole moving from the NL to the AL, I feel like has been very overblown. I've seen pitchers make that move, and the needle doesn't really move as much as I expected it to. So I'm kind of done playing that card because I played that in the past. I'm done with that whole thing.
I'm still a believer of that.
They brought in George Springer. They've got Marcus Semien. This is going to be a fun team, but I don't think they're going to compete for a division title. I think that they could compete for second, maybe.
Tanner Roark did not have a good season last year. A
lot of their pitchers didn't. I mean, Robbie Ray, Steven Matz, I forget who their other guy. Like a lot of them didn't pitch very well last year, but they've had success in the past. They could all bounce back. Last year was a weird season.
They went to the playoffs last year.
And that's what I'm going to say is that, both Tanner Roark and Robbie Ray had a good track record going for them until last year where both of them seemingly fell off a cliff. So it's probably safe to say that's not a coincidence. It was a weird season. It affected people differently. And so I think those guys could bounce back and have pretty solid years as well. I agree with you, Corey. I think the rotation is adequate for the Blue Jays. I think their lineup is pretty damn dangerous, though. This team can hit the crap out of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I drafted Bo Bichette. I'm hoping that he has a good year.
Bo Bichette was a king of memes about a year ago. Wonderful. Yes. George Springer
What did he do to deserve to be king of memes? Like, what happened?
He has a name that rhymes with a lot of stuff. Bo.
Okay.
And that's
Is
it.
this given name Bo? I feel like I've looked this up before.
You probably did.
I'm going to click on his name real quick. See what. I mean, it just says Bo here, but I'm sure it's a nickname. Maybe it's not.
Bo Joseph Bichette.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, Bo Bichette's really good, though. He's had good seasons. He's a proven stud player, even though he's young. George Springer is borderline superstar. He's been a fantastic player for his career. Marcus Semien's really good. Vladdy Jr., I think, is poised to have a nice season at the plate, especially because he's not fat Vladdy anymore, which is nice. Kevon Biggio is a good player. He's not his dad, but pretty good. They've got a lot of really good young players that I think people are sleeping on. I think their offense will be good enough to sort of carry an adequate but not great pitching staff. I think this team's going to be a contender for a wild card spot at the very least. Like, I don't know if they'll beat out the Yankees, but that's more because I got a lot of respect for what the Yankees are going to do this year, more so than it's any knock on the Blue Jays or any shortcoming. I think this is a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. That's why I say I don't think they're going to win the division because I really do think the Yankees have the division all but on lock. Like unless we have even worse injury luck than we did last year, which was already bad enough, which is entirely possible. I don't think the Yankees lose the division, but I could see Toronto competing for that second place and a potential wild card spot.
So let's move on to.
I feel compelled to defend myself with this Blue Jays take, right? I'm not saying they're hot garbage. I'm just saying their pitching staff isn't exactly contending quality. They're going to hit. We know that, right? Everybody, they're going to hit, but they just can't pitch. They don't have.
Yeah, I think that that's a little bit of an overstatement though to say they can't pitch. I think they can pitch just fine.
I think their pitching is adequate enough to take advantage of how good their lineup is.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Demers, Han. We probably won't spend too much time talking about them because, one, we talk about the Orioles all the time, and two, I don't think any of us expects much from Baltimore this year.
I think the Orioles win 70 games this season.
I mean, I could see that.
Right? Everybody's like, oh, they'll win like 61 games. Like, no, 70 wins for the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that predicting 60 or 61 is a little bit over the top disrespectful. I mean, I think that it's within the realm of possibilities that they only win that many, but I also think that 70 is very much within their reach. I would say, I mean, I don't think that 75 is like out of their reach either. I think that they could do that. So I would say 70 is probably a good number to aim for.
I mean, once you start saying 75, I mean, let's start selling playoff tickets at that point.
Not in the
that
AL
sounds
East.
like a lot.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I can see the Orioles cracking 70. In fact, I think if they get to 70 or 72, I think it's a pretty successful season. But I agree. I don't see them being some 100-loss team this year. I think they win. I'd be surprised if they didn't win at least 65 games. Like that would be the low end for me. Unless, of course, they have catastrophic injuries. I think there is some talent on this team. The only concern about the Orioles to me, they're obviously not very good. But the disastrous part of the team is, per usual, the pitching. I think that this team is going to get lit up on a regular basis. But that's par for the course. And when you're only expecting maybe 70 wins, it's not like you're expecting them to go out there and be Jim Palmer.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Matt Harvey's the number 2 starter. Like, when you're counting on Matt Harvey, you probably shouldn't be expecting too much success.
Nah. So let's move on to, I think, maybe the biggest mystery team this year, the Tampa Bay Rays. Like, this team won the AL pennant and looked damn good doing it, and yet everybody's writing them off and saying they're leaving them for dead. I don't know what's going on here. Why no love for the Rays?
I feel like what they did last year was a little bit of an aberration. I mean, they really were not supposed to be even that good. Like they shouldn't really have been competitive in the playoffs, and yet they were. I don't really know what to think about this team, to be quite honest. I mean, they got Chris Archer, Rich Hill, and Michael Wacha behind their two main starters in Glasnow and Yarborough. They've all been pitchers who have pitched well previously in their career, but over the past few years, they've all dealt with either health issues or just being ineffective. So a big question for them is, can those guys be effective? I mentioned earlier, thank you so much for sending Randy Arozarena to the Rays. As if it wasn't bad enough that George Springer had to come into the AL East, now the Yankees have to deal with this guy too. I think the Rays, I think mystery is the perfect word to describe them. I think that they could be really good. I think that they could be a team that maybe competes with the Yankees for the division win. I also think that they could be the team that's competing with the Red Sox just to stay ahead of the Orioles.
I agree and disagree with you, Corey. I disagree in the sense that I think the Rays aren't. I don't think they're going to be a team that's competing with the Orioles down at the bottom of the division. But I do agree that the Rays are a complete mystery. I also think that was the perfect word, because the Rays, they're just not a very famous team. We just don't know who these people are. But I think they're going to be effective. Like they seem to sort of manufacture wins with their process and stuff. Like they don't have any star players. As soon as somebody gets good, he's sent to San Diego or someplace. He's just gone. They've robbed the Pirates completely and utterly with this Chris Archer thing, right? They traded him to the Pirates because the Pirates thought they were good for some reason, and now they have Chris Archer back and the guys they got for him. So what like, so Meadows, I think he's going to hit. Rosarena's going to hit. I think did G-Man Choi get injured? He's a fun guy to watch. He's kind of a larger fella. So yeah, I definitely think this team not only is in the wild card conversation, but certainly in the mix to compete for the division title.
Yeah, G-Man Choi is day-to-day with a knee injury, so if he misses time, it probably won't be too much.
Well, Chris Davis was day-to-day as well. So
yeah, well, now we know Chris Davis is a different situation, so we'll just leave that at that. But yeah, I agree that they've got some bats that people sleep on a little bit. Brandon Lau can hit. Randy Rosarena looks like a legit star. Willie Adames had a nice season last year as well. It's just a bunch of guys that I feel like, since people didn't really know what to expect from them last year and they played well, they kind of reset their view to say, well, we still don't expect much from them this year just because you surprised us, which is kind of why people are maybe not giving the Rays enough credit. I think that they absolutely could compete for a wild card spot. I do think that they have lost a lot, though. I mean, they lost their best pitcher in Blake Snell. I think that's going to be something that affects them, especially when the margins are so thin to win the division with the Yankees at the top. So I have them thoroughly in the mix to potentially get back to the playoffs, but the division might be a little bit out of reach this year.
They won the division by 7 games last year in 60 games.
Oh, I know. They were wonderful.
They ran away with it.
That was also last year, so things change. We'll move on to another team that I don't really think they're as much of a mystery, but they're certainly not talked about as much, which I'm so happy about that nobody talks about these guys anymore. The Boston Red Sox. They had a terrible season last year. They finished in last place, which is hilarious. Screw you, Dennis Eckersley. Enjoy that.
Must be so hard to cover the Red Sox on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
the poor Red Sox.
Especially because you have to live in Boston too, so there's that.
With that guy's cousin as well.
Yikes! Yes, indeed. Hopefully, he's not coming to any weddings near you.
Yes.
How are we feeling about this team though? Because I think they're better than they were last year, or at least they should be. But I still don't think they're very good.
I think they're like the Cubs in that they're incredibly well paid and incredibly overrated. Like there's just not a whole lot of substance here. They send all their best players across the country for financial flexibility. Because that's going to win games is financial flexibility. Chris Sale's coming back from Tommy John surgery, so he might be a bit of an X factor for them in the middle of the season. But other than that, I don't see any positives here. They paid JD Martinez all this money, and he seems like he's been a disappointment. I think he'll bounce back a little bit, but he doesn't play the field anymore. There's nothing here.
Yeah, the Red Sox make me a little bit nervous just because it seems like every few years, you go into the season kind of writing them off and they end up, either surprising everybody and winning the division or at least like being in the conversation way longer than they should have been. And so that, that's what kind of makes me nervous because this team, I don't think is really very good, but it is a little bit better than it was last year. And so you just never really know with them. I would almost go so far as to put that mystery moniker on this team too, just not to the same extent as the Rays.
I think that the Red Sox have a lot of big names at the top of the marquee, but I'm not sure that any of them are as good as people think they are.
It's a lot of bark and very little bite.
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers, I think, are legit. Like, those are really good ball players. But Christian Vasquez was a guy that was supposed to be the most amazing defensive catcher since Pudge Rodriguez, and yeah, he's pretty good back there, but he can't hit. Pudge could hit. And JD Martinez, like Evan said, he's a positionless man at this point, which means the expectations for your hitting go through the roof. If you're a DH, you have to be able to bat at a very high level. Yeah, you got to be able to hit. Being an average hitter as a DH is the equivalent of being a replacement level player as an average fielder that plays like a normal position. Like that's how much they expect from a DH because you're literally paid to do one of the two things.
It's been designated, perhaps.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Evan, for all of the puns. The acquisition of Hunter Renfroe, I don't think that really does much. I mean, what's that? Who cares? He's not that good. I mean, there's not much here, and the rotation doesn't look good without Chris Sale, who's not going to be back until the midseason. Eduardo Rodriguez, he's okay, but I don't think he's ever materialized to what the Red Sox expected when they traded for him from Baltimore. And he gets hurt a lot too, so you can't count on him for 33 starts this year. I mean, who's their opening day starter? I don't even know. I care?
Eovaldi tomorrow.
Oh, goodness.
My goodness. I mean, he had a wonderful World Series where he pitched all those innings in that obnoxiously long game.
A wonderful World Series. He was the losing pitcher in the game they lost.
But he pitched like 8 innings of relief. That was like, you can't blame him for that. Like that was a pretty impressive pitching performance nonetheless.
It was, but like, you know,
if that's your career highlight,
if this is your guy you're counting on, then I'm sorry, you should have lower expectations.
We talked about Garrett Richards as well, how he's fallen off, and I wouldn't expect a whole lot from him. I'm just glad he still has a career and is in the major leagues. Red Sox bullpen isn't that good. The lineup has a few big hitters. It's just not that good of a team. Like someone's got to say.
What you're worried about, Corey?
Yeah, I think you should be worried about the Blue Jays than this team.
Well, I agree. I should. The problem is there have been other years when I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, the Reds, like, 2 or 3 years ago, the Red Sox had absolutely nothing coming into the season. They ended up winning the division.
Well, they had a couple of years where they were winning the division consistently, but they had a guy named Mookie Betts, and he gone. Yeah. So again, I think your fears are understandable because that's your bitter rival, but don't worry about the Red Sox.
Yeah. The Yankees win at least 13 of the 19 games this season.
So we'll move on to the dreaded Yankees, Corey's squad. I think it's safe to say we're all picking them to win the division.
Yeah.
But are there any concerns that you have about this team, Corey? Just, with the reality that you're going to be in a situation where it's World Series or bust. Do you think there's anything that could hold them back other than, typical injury concern from getting there?
Well, I mean, I think the injuries are the big thing because, if you just look at, the players that are no longer on the roster versus the players we've added to the roster, you'd argue that we've actually gotten worse since last year, right? But you also have to factor that we're getting back a lot of players that we barely had at all last year and even the year before because of all the injuries we've dealt with. If we stay healthy, we can't lose this division. And I would argue that it would be a huge upset for anybody to beat us leading into the World Series if we stay healthy. But that's a big if based on the past several years because we don't stay healthy. So I think that is the biggest question mark with this team.
I mean, yeah, it's the injuries and it's the pitching is a little unproven.
The pitching is unproven, but if we stay healthy in the field with our hitters, we can make up for that. That was one of the biggest issues last year was that our batters were not staying healthy, and so we were not able to make up for that on a consistent basis, especially once we started getting into the dog days, which was basically the middle of the season rather than the end of the first third, beginning of the second third.
That was when the season started.
Yeah, it started.
Right, exactly. Like that was like the first half of the season.
Yeah.
They started
102 games in last year.
So yeah, I mean, it just that is really the biggest concern for me. If we can stay healthy, we can make up for the pitching rotation maybe being a little bit suspect during early on. Much as I still dislike having on the team, Domingo Germán is going to be really good this year. Garrett Cole's gonna be really good. I think that once Severino comes back, based on everything I'm hearing out of his pitching sessions, he's gonna be really good. So the question is, so at that point we'll have a solid trio. I don't know how soon we can really expect to get Severino back. So until then, we've got a strong duo with some, one or two decent pitches behind him and one or two question marks behind them. So, yes, the pitching is going to be a little bit suspect in the back part of the rotation, but I also think that the idea of bringing in a sixth starter from time to time, letting some of those arms be a little bit fresher for their next start, may help to overcome some of those issues.
What about the non-Aroldis Chapman portion of the bullpen? Because Ottavino was horrible.
I mean, even Aroldis Chapman, you have to wonder. I mean, he only had 3 saves last year.
I don't even know, right? And Zach Britton's got elbow something or other. So like, what? How do they get to Chapman?
Yeah, I mean that's a fair question, and I don't know what the health status is of some of those bullpen arms right now, so I'll have to look into that a little bit. But again, I think that even if the bullpen isn't rock solid, a healthy lineup can make up for that because of we have such good hitters on this team. Even the guys who are in the 6, 7, 8, 9 spots in our lineup are really good hitters, or above average hitters.
Did Brett Gardner come back?
Brett Gardner is back. I'm not sure yet what his role is going to be on a day-to-day basis in the lineup.
He's going to be in charge of hitting his bat on the roof of the dugout.
Yeah, he'll be the guy who's down there, trying to get everybody else fired up.
Yeah. Got to have some savages in the box, right?
But, if our guys get injured, it's a moot point. At that point, those deficiencies in the pitching staff are going to rear their ugly head. And suddenly we're not necessarily even a lock to win the division.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are going to be fine during the regular season. I think that they've got a whole lot of depth. They've got a ton of great players. I actually think their bullpen's really strong. Like, they've got Aroldis Chapman, who's suspended. I don't know how long that suspension is.
Two
for.
games.
Like 2 games.
Oh, well, that's
yeah, it's nothing.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like 30 or something like that. Like, okay,
I think it was initially like 30, and then they reduced it to 2.
To 2.
How do you get down from 30 to 2?
I don't know. Maybe the initial was only like 15 or 20. I thought it was 30 though. Regardless, It's been reduced to 2.
So he's basically going to be there for the entire season.
Yes.
Health willing, but I also think Chad Green's a good reliever for the Yankees. I think he's a really good pitcher for them. I think the addition of Darren O'Day. Darren O'Day isn't quite what he used to be when he's with the Orioles, but he's still an effective relief pitcher at times. If Zach Britton can get healthy, he's proven to be an effective reliever for the Yankees as well. So their bullpen is pretty solid, and the starting rotation looks pretty good. And I think the bigger concern with the Yankees is, what's their rotation going to look like come October? And with the return of Luis Severino, that's going to make them a legitimate, dangerous team at the top of the rotation.
Oh, yeah.
When those outings get shortened. And I think the big reason, in fact, the main reason they're using a 6 starter is because like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th guy are all a bunch of just nobodies, and so you might as well throw a 6th guy in there because it's not like you desperately need to keep somebody in the rotation or else you're going to miss out on a great outing. But Garrett Cole obviously can't be touched. But with the return of Severino, with the rest of these guys, there's no way that they shouldn't be looked as the favorite to win the American League this year. So, who are we picking to win the division? The Yankees.
The Yankees.
Yeah. Okay. So, first team from the AL Central is the Cleveland's, because they don't have a name or something like that. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I think they technically are still the I words Indians for this year.
Oh. Well, on Fangraphs, they're just Cleveland, so
really?
Good for Fangraphs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So this is a weird team too because they used to be really good and they just let everybody leave because that's what they do.
Yeah, they lost Carlos Carrasco, Francisco Lindor, Brad Hand, and Carlos Santana since last year.
Yeah, and they also had Michael Brantley left a couple of years ago, but he was a really good player for them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when they were in the division series against the Yankees and blew it spectacularly in 2017, they were coming off a World Series. They were the #1 seed in the American League. It looked like they were going back to the World Series. They won 20 games in a row that season, and then now it's just so it's just there's literally nothing here. At least the Red Sox are famous and stuff. They spend a lot of money.
So
Cleveland Baseball Club, it's just an empty balloon.
So one of the funny things is in the season preview that Baseball America published for Cleveland, their key additions this offseason were outfielder Eddie Rosario, shortstop Ahmed Rosario, and shortstop Ahmed Rosario. They listed Ahmed Rosario twice because they didn't add anything this offseason.
Well, something should be noted that Ahmed Rosario is being brought in to replace Francisco frickin' Lindor. So that's a subtraction.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, we send the Hall of Famer away and we'll bring in you. Okay, that's a recipe for success right there.
Yeah, Jose Ramirez has got to get out of there. Same with Shane Bieber. I mean, it's unacceptable that those talents are going to waste in Cleveland because this team is going to stink.
Plesac.
Related to the guy that works on MLB Network, Dan Plesac. Yeah,
that's his nephew.
Yeah, there's a lot of Plesacs that have played professional baseball.
There can't be that many.
There's like 3 of them. That's more than there should be. That's cold. I shouldn't say that.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Well, let's move on to some other teams that maybe are a little more interesting. So not this one, the Kansas City Royals. They've got Salvador Perez. What else do they got? I don't know. You tell me.
I think they have Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah. And is Carlos Santana still any good?
Oh, he's on the Royals?
Yeah.
If I didn't know, then they have Michael A. Taylor.
Yeah, they also have
Michael K. Taylor.
They also have Adalberto Mondesi.
They have Jorge Soler, who hits bombs. He broke the single season record for home runs for the Royals, which was at 37. I think it's in the low to mid 40s now.
All right. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think the Royals are going to be any good?
No.
Me either. Next, the Detroit Tigers, who are also going to be great. God, what this division's so bad. What is with the Centrals?
Can we just instead of having, I think there's 2 AAA divisions, can we have 4 AAA divisions and have both Centrals relegated to AAA?
I would be okay with that.
All right, say something nice about the Tigers.
Something nice about the Tigers.
Okay, I'll count that.
Yeah, they have Miguel Cabrera, who's ancient. They signed him to a 10-year deal, I want to say in 2014.
Well, have fun with that.
So he's going to be well over 40 when that deal is up. He was great a while ago, and he's knocking on the door of some milestones. We'll see if Casey Mize turns into anything. And we'll see when they call up Spencer Torkelson. I think they drafted him, but they just drafted him in 2020, so he's probably not coming up this year.
Probably not.
But I'm pretty sure he was a college player. So we'll see.
Yeah, my nice thing about the Tigers is they have Jonathan Scope, and I love Jonathan Scope, so there's that. Moving on to the Minnesota Twins, who won the division last year and lost in the playoffs again and again and again, because that's what they do. I still think the Twins are a good team, though. I still think that they're among the teams that are going to compete for this division because there's only 2 good teams, it seems, and they're one of them. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in Andrelton Simmons, which is a good addition.
That's a big pickup, yeah.
Jay Happ and Matt Shoemaker, decent additions to their pitching staff. They got Michael Pineda, who, as long as he can keep putting any grease on his neck,
Grease.
Pine Tar, baby.
Grease.
It's the opposite of grease.
No.
It's sticky.
I mean, that's Also, just saying a little bit of grease is being kind. That was an enormous glob on the side of his neck.
As long as he can avoid doing anything stupid like that, yeah, I mean the Twins could be, they'll be an interesting team to watch in the Central. They'll definitely be competitive.
This team hits bombs. Like that's what they do, is just hit bombs. And that ballpark too was not the type of place you want to try to hit bombs, but they do. So they're going to hit. Their pitching's going to be good enough, if not just good. So I would have high expectations for them in the regular season. The postseason is a different story for some reason.
Such a tragedy. I feel bad for their fans. I mean, I couldn't imagine. Well, they lost like 18 or 19 straight postseason games.
Yep.
Yeah, so
that's nuts.
The Orioles' postseason losing streak is only 5. So,
Yeah, that there you go. All right, so we'll move to the other team that might compete for this division, because there's only 2 worthwhile teams to talk about here. The Chicago White Sox are coming off of a really nice shortened season last year where their young talent, after like 5 years of waiting, finally seemed to come together. Like, I had written them off and said, oh, their rebuild failed. That sucks. But here they are. They're pretty good now. So what are we thinking about them?
I like them.
I know you liked them last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll be fun to watch. It's a shame that Eloy Jimenez got injured. He's going to be out for a while. But Tim Anderson is one of my favorite players. Wish the Orioles had like 5 Tim Andersons. Like, that would be amazing. We'll see how Tony La Russa does as their manager. Now that he's back to being their manager 40 years later.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Like Jake Mintz said on their podcast that he would walk to Chicago from New York City if they hired Tony La Russa as their manager. And sure enough, they did. So he will be hitting the road later this summer. I think he's agreed to bike to Chicago from New York instead. But still, I think that's the most interesting thing about them, is how they manage all this talent that they have. And now their expectations as well. It's so much easier to win when you're not supposed to win. But, when you've arrived, like they say they have, and you're supposed to win, now they have to beat up on the Royals and the Tigers every single time. So, there's pressure on them. So I'm interested to see how they do. But they'll be better than the Cubs. Even though the Cubs sort of soak up all the oxygen.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox, Evan mentioned Tim Anderson. He's a lot of fun to watch. Moncada is good. Lucas Giolito is a really good pitcher for them. He'll probably be in the Cy Young conversation at least.
Spoiler alert.
And I think that this is probably the most dangerous team in the Central, in my opinion. I mean, I know the Twins could certainly compete, but I think the White Sox should probably be the favorite in the Central. Spoiler alert on who I'm picking.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty clear who Corey's going with there. I agree. The White Sox are fun. They've made their rotation stand up at this point. Lance Lynn, Dallas Keuchel, Lucas Giolito. That's a solid top 3, with Giolito obviously being at the top of the rotation. They're good young talent. I expect to continue to take a jump. I think a lot of people are sort of predicting a regression, and I'm expecting them to keep getting better, because that's what young players typically do. They typically improve. They don't get worse. They don't have aberrations and then just stop being good. This looks like a good young team. I'm looking forward to watching them play. I do have some questions about how La Russa is going to handle this squad, but at least he's in the American League, where he can't get too, up his own ass with his own brilliance, with all the obnoxious double switches and all the other crap that he used to pull with the Cardinals. He just
invented the closer position.
He just has to sit there and be grumpy and wear his stupid sunglasses at night, and that's all he has to do, because this team's going to win plenty of games without him.
Yeah, their stadium's very boring.
That's true. Yeah. Just throw that in there. So
is theirs Comiskey or Comerica? I always get the two confused.
Comerica's the Tiger Stadium.
Okay, yeah. So this is Comiskey.
It's guaranteed.
It used to be Comiskey, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Guaranteed rate field.
So
Yeah.
who do we got?
There's a blog post about it on our blog from a couple years ago, by the way.
Yes,
I
I recall that one.
3 that I've written.
Yes. So anyway, who do we have winning the division?
Chicago.
I picked the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, I stuck with the Twins too. It was a tough choice, but I went with the Twins.
All right.
All right, moving on to the AL West. We'll start with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Oh, that's East? I thought you said West.
Oh my God. Well, this is off to a great start with the Angels. I think the Angels are going to be okay this year. That's about all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, if
Dylan
Ohtani
Bundy
stays
is starting
healthy,
for them.
Dylan Bundy's starting for them.
Yeah,
He's opening day
starter.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
could be better, but
Yeah, it could be.
Could be a lot better.
But Ohtani, if he can stay healthy, he'll hopefully pitch well and hit pretty well. I don't know if you guys saw, but a lot of sports books are reporting that Ohtani is actually getting more action than anybody else in bets for AL MVP this year. People are liking his 30-1 odds a lot better than whatever Mike Trout's are. Yeah.
I wouldn't bet on it, but okay.
I wouldn't either. But there you go. They brought in some pitching help. Alex Cobb, Jose Quintana.
What?
This guy stinks.
Alex Cobb.
Yeah, I mean,
He was
I don't.
worse than Waldo for the Orioles over the same.
Well, then there you
same
go.
amount of
I
time.
guess that's not that good of an addition for them. So, but yeah, I mean,
Cobb. Oh.
I think Eric said it perfectly. They'll be okay. No better, no worse.
Yeah, they'll hit. Their pitching won't be any good. So this will be another year of Mike Trout watching the playoffs on TV with us. So, I just don't understand how you can have this like Babe Ruth level player on your team and not win. Like even the Red Sox won when they had Babe Ruth on their team. And they got rid of him for some reason, and the rest was a long history. But like you just have Mike Trout and the ghost of Albert Pujols. They added Rendon. I think they have Jose Iglesias now, who's
Yeah, they do.
an underrated hitter. But like what? Why aren't they better? Like why is their pitching bad? Still. Why is it still bad? They have no shortage of money, right? It's not a money issue. So what are they doing? Right? They're a perpetual disappointment, and maybe I shouldn't allow myself to be disappointed by the Angels anymore. Like the game that I went to, Mike Trout hits a bomb to tie it in the 8th inning, and then the top of the 9th they start kicking the ball all over the place, and the Mariners lose. So, or not the Mariners, the Angels lose to the Mariners.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
A fun fact about the Angels, you look at their projections on Fangraphs, and as a team, they're expected to score 31.3 runs above average. But if you take Mike Trout out of that equation, they're expected to score negative 21 runs above average. So he's pretty much the whole team, which
He's 50 runs.
52.5 runs is his projection. And that's probably underselling him because he usually puts up 70 or so. So there you go. That's why the Angels stink, because they've got two really good players right now with Trout and Rendon, and Iglesias is a pretty good pickup, and then Ohtani, who's sort of a mystery but can be good, and then everybody else is just horrible. So there's your answer. They got Dexter Fowler, though.
Oh, okay. Do they really have him, or do they just report they have him and then he's going back to the Cubs?
We don't know. He might just show up with the Cubs tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's all we got for the Angels. We'll move down the list here to the Houston Astros, who we all just love so much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they got better, but I don't think they're bad.
Nah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean they lost George Springer and Josh Reddick. George Springer in particular hurts.
Where did Reddick go?
I don't remember off the top of my head where he ended up, but
I don't think
but I mean
that good.
yeah, but I mean that George Springer, it's a pretty big loss for them. They did bring in Jake Odorizzi, who he had a decent 2019 with the Twins, and he's had some decent seasons with the Rays in the past. I don't know that he still has that in him, but if he does, he certainly can give them a little something, in their rotation. But all I can say is I really hope that Altuve and Correa and Bregman and those guys, that they just continue what they were doing last year and just be subpar, because I can't stand this team.
Yeah, but they made the ALCS and pushed
Yeah,
it to
I know
7
they did.
games, so that wasn't as good as we hoped. We hoped they would just miss the playoffs, but when there's 8 teams that make it, I guess
They were under 500
they were
last year.
Yeah, so hopefully that sustains itself, but I don't think it will, because I think this team is still really good. The big drop off for them is the pitching. I mean, we saw the team that they had back in 2019 where they should have won the World Series without cheating, and they lost probably while they were cheating. But
maybe because they were cheating, because they read the signs wrong.
They psyched themselves out when they couldn't do it anymore, and they just freaked out. I don't know. But I think that their rotation has taken such a big step back. No Verlander this year due to injury. Garrett Cole is long gone at this point. So they're basically relying on 35-year-old Zach Greinke to be the ace. And Greinke's still a very good pitcher, but
he's one man.
I wouldn't want that to be my one guy.
Right.
I mean, Lance McCullers is okay. Like you said, Corey, Jake Odorizzi's fine. But this rotation's kind of mediocre now. And it used to be the best in the league by a country mile. Like, it used to be one of the best rotations in the history of rotations. And now it's just blah. Yeah. So, and I think also losing George Springer takes a little punch out of the lineup. You still got Bregman, Correa, Altuve. Kyle Tucker's a good hitter. Yordan Alvarez just hits big bombs all the time. Michael Brantley's
still.
Yeah, so they've got a really good, 6 or 7 hitters deep lineup. They can do a lot of damage, but the rotation's going to hold them back from being a team that really just dominates the American League like they have in the years past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So we'll move on to the Oakland A's, who are kind of in a similar boat as the Rays. They were really good last year, but they don't have any real dudes. I mean, they got like Matt Chapman or whatever. That's kind of it.
They have Matt Olson as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want so badly to pick the Athletics to beat the Astros, but I don't know if I can, because they lost so much this offseason. They lost Marcus Semien, they lost Liam Hendricks, they lost Chris Davis, they lost Robbie Grossman, and none of those guys are like necessarily stars, but all of them have their benefits. Pieces. Yeah, exactly. They're all good pieces for them to have, and they don't have them anymore. They brought in Elvis Andrus. It's a decent addition, I think. I don't.
Yeah, he's old though.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that they would have been better served to keep Marcus Semien over him. They brought Mitch Moreland in, who is an okay DH, I guess, but nothing special. They brought in Trevor Rosenthal, which I don't know anything about Trevor Rosenthal, which doesn't. I mean, I don't follow baseball super closely, but that can't be that good.
It took him a few appearances last year with the Nationals to get his ERA below infinity.
Oh, jeez. So there you go. So,
yeah.
The most interesting thing about the Athletics, I think, is going to be seeing how Jesus Luzardo does. He's a young guy, left-handed pitcher for them, and I think that if he pitches well, that could certainly help their cause. But I don't know if this team is capable of actually winning the West.
I think the most interesting thing about them is they play the Astros. I think they play the Astros tomorrow, like in Oakland. Like, this could be a thing. Like, these two teams had a brouhaha or a Donnybrook last year. When those were expressly forbidden. So, that's sort of bulletin board material. But in terms of the actual baseball, like you said, Corey, they're in the same boat as the Rays, but I don't think they're nearly as good as the Rays. Like, they have a bunch of no-name guys, but all the Rays no-name guys produce. They win games over there. The A's are the defending division champions, but I don't see it from them this year. Like they lost a bunch of guys and then replaced them with, people off the street, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think this team has some things to look forward to, but they feel just like they're pretty good at best. Like they don't really have that. Like last year, you kind of felt it, like that they were going to be good because they had enough star power at the top to make you think that they were going to make a run and win the division, which they did. But this year, it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the Seattle Mariners. Let's not spend too much time here because it's the Mariners.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They stink.
What do the Mariners have going for them? Like, what are their positives? They have Kyle Lewis, who won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. And Mitch Haniger's back, and he's pretty good.
As long as he doesn't foul the ball off of his own groin again.
Yeah, that'd be nice. J.P. Crawford's all right, too. And, Kyle Seager has been to All-Star games before, so he's kind of the face of the team. But apparently he's not going to be around much longer, according to that guy that was just talking to people about how Kyle Seager's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he has a nice year in his contract here and going to get paid somewhere else. But other than that, there's not much here. I mean, pitching-wise, they got James Paxton back, and he's probably going to be their best guy this year. But
how good is Rafael Montero? So they brought him in.
Is that?
He's a relief pitcher, and he's fine. I mean, he's good, but not. It's not Aroldis Chapman. I mean, what do you want me to say? He's fine.
All right. So sounds like the Mariners missed the playoffs for the 20th consecutive season.
Yeah, this last year was their year to take advantage of it, and it didn't happen. And then I think the previous year or a couple years ago, they won like 93 games and didn't even come close to making the playoffs, even with the additional wild card. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
sucks.
Since the last time the Mariners went to the playoffs have been expanded twice, and they still haven't been.
Yep. It's a beautiful sadness. So we've got one more team to talk about, and it's a team that we don't really want to talk about. It's the Texas Rangers, who are going to be horrible.
Yes, and they're having a super spreader event tomorrow at their stadium. So if you care about coronavirus being a part of reality on the planet Earth, don't go to that. But in terms of the team on the field, they're a clown organization. They beclowned themselves in the Fernando Tatis thing. They have Joey Gallo, who hits home runs and strikes out all the time. Is that it?
They have Rougned Odor. They have Tavares.
They got rid of him today.
Oh, they got rid of him today?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, they cut him.
Oh, wow.
It was yesterday.
Oh, man.
But yeah, they got rid of him, so they don't have Odor.
Oh, they do. They have Sam Huff, the catcher. He's okay.
Sam Huff was a linebacker for the New York Giants.
I thought Sam Huff was a singer.
Well, the Rangers have a catcher named Sam Huff, so there you go. He probably will not live up to the name of his
There's
his
Sam
namesake.
Huff football player, Sam Huff Rangers, Sam Huff baseball. Okay. Just Google Sam Huff. Robert Lee.
They've also got Brock Holt, who was the Red Sox most annoying utility guy for about 5 years.
He was an all-star the 1 year.
Yeah.
And he's the one player to hit for the cycle in postseason history. Against
Eric's
your
favorite
Yankees
stat.
story.
It's Eric's favorite stat.
Yeah.
Love the cycle.
Yeah.
It's the most important stat there is.
Besides RBIs, of course.
And pitcher wins. Don't forget those.
Yes, indeed. So that'll do it for the AL West. Who do you have winning the division?
The Astros.
I picked the Houston Astros.
Yeah, clean sweep. I got the Astros too.
Alrighty.
All right, so pick some wild cards for me for the American League.
My first wild card is the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays. All right.
Evan?
I have the Tampa Bay Rays as wildcard 1.
I've got the Toronto Blue Jays as wildcard 1.
Oh my goodness.
And my second wild card is the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, okay. It's written in the wrong column. I have the White Sox. Eric.
I've got the White Sox as well.
Okay.
AL Cy Young, who's got it?
My boy Garrett Cole.
Gerrit.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I said Lucas Giolito again.
Running it back, huh? I like it. It could happen.
Yeah, it could.
I got Garrett Cole as well.
All right. Yeah. What about MVP?
It's gonna be Trout. It always is.
Yeah, it's Mike Trout.
All right. Well, I guess you can call me an idiot, but I picked Mike Trout's teammate Shohei Ohtani. for an MVP.
Is this because of the betting odds thing?
This is because of the pitching and hitting at the same time thing.
I don't think that is enough
Yeah.
to just give him the award.
He has to be really good at both, and we haven't seen him be really good at both at the same time, really. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, picking Trout every year is so boring.
It is
so-
boring. I hate doing it, but it's also right.
because he's so good, like what am I supposed to do? I gotta call it how I see it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so who do we have winning the American League pennant?
You can call me a homer because I'm taking the Yankees.
Evan?
I also picked the Yankees.
Yeah, part of the reason why I picked the Twins as my second wild card is because I'm praying that they will end their drought of postseason wins only to lose to the Yankees in the ALDS again.
Like the 45th consecutive time or something.
God, it's an annual tradition. Just the Twins play the Yankees in the playoffs and lose all the games, and it's always on TBS. But I've got the Yankees winning the American League as well. I don't think anybody in the American League has the pitching to take advantage of perhaps the Yankees not having the pitching. So everybody's kind of regressed pitching wise in the AL, and so the Yankees won't be at any type of disadvantage there, and they'll just bludgeon everybody until they get to the World Series.
Yep.
Yeah. Who do you think is the next best team in the American League? Like, who's that? Right? I feel like everybody in the American League has taken such a step back. Oh my goodness, Eric, you froze on a very interesting face.
Oh no!
I missed it. I was about to take a screenshot.
I would.
I think Twins.
The Twins might be it.
But
I think
the Twins can't get over their playoff issues, so they won't get to play the Yankees in the championship series.
For me,
You
it's
know what I'm going to say?
No, I don't.
Blue Jays.
I was just gonna say I think it's a toss up between the Blue Jays and the White Sox for second best in the American League.
Oh, I forget about the White Sox. That's true. Maybe the White Sox.
I think the Astros could be, but like I said, I don't trust the rotation this year.
I don't trust their hitting this year either. Like, their
That's
hitting
true.
was atrocious last year as well.
That's true, and maybe it's because they cheated and they can't anymore. Maybe that is a real thing. So,
Or they haven't
find
figured out a way to cheat yet.
yeah, that's true. They better hurry up.
Also,
Season
AJ
starts,
Hinch is the
soon.
Tigers manager now. That's not cognitive dissonance. I don't know what it is. Like, that's going to take a little while to get used to.
Yep. All right, so who wins the World Series?
I picked the Yankees.
Much to my chagrin, the San Diego Padres get revenge for 1998 and beat the Yankees.
I got the Dodgers beating the Yankees.
Alrighty. So, baseball with all its parity, I guess. Same teams every year.
Yeah, I picked the Astros and the Dodgers last year. I picked the Astros to beat the Dodgers, but that didn't happen. So which I'm actually glad it didn't happen. So
I think the Astros, they were under 500.
I didn't know they were going to be under 500. They still almost made the World Series.
Evan, the way this works is they play the games after we make our predictions.
Right.
That's why sometimes we're wrong.
I mean, it's a prediction, but you still deserve to receive some grief if you're woefully incorrect.
All right, well, we are pushing the 3-hour mark of this podcast, so we had a lot to get through, and we got through it as quickly as we, maybe not as possibly could, but we did the best we could. So thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed our Major League Baseball preview. We'll be continuing to cover baseball throughout the season as interesting stories pop up, and we'll probably have a sort of a state of Major League Baseball, hopefully around Memorial Day, and then again maybe at the All-Star break, and then Labor Day. We'll pick some times to talk about baseball a little more exclusively. We'll also continue to cover the NBA as things happen. We'll be preparing for the NFL draft, where keep your ear to the ground because we may have another live stream of that event, which means you can hang out with us for 4.5 hours while we sit on our asses and talk about picks, which is a wonderful time for everybody. We'll also continue to have coverage of the NCAA tournament as that wraps up and any other sports-related news that we feel like discussing. So you can email us and ask us questions or tell us we suck or all that good stuff at thesportsballers@gmail.com. You can also find us on all major podcast distributors, including Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever. And you can also follow this podcast on Twitter. We are at SportsBallers18. If you want to follow us individually, you can do that as well. Corey is at Corey Puffett. I am at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Do you guys have any shout-outs before we get out of here?
Just happy opening day to everybody.
Yes, we've made it.
It's like my one true love has returned. It's been a tumultuous off-season a little bit with the CBA type stuff getting a little revved up, just whispers and everything. But I'm just so glad baseball is back. I'm scrolling down the list of games for tomorrow. None of the matchups really jumping out at me.
Yankees, Blue Jays.
I think that's where I will start tomorrow, actually, because the other 1:00 game is Indians Tigers, which is not great. The Orioles are at 2:10. But yeah, there's 3 interleague games. Usually there's just one.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So
I'll give a quick shout out to Sean Kennedy, Andrew Perez, Alex Mayo, Sam Martin, and Corey Fronton, who have joined us for our fantasy baseball league this year. So that should be a fun time. We won't actually start our season with opening day. We'll start a week from Monday because the platform we're on would have counted Thursday through the following Sunday as 1 week, and I didn't really like that too much. So we're gonna wait until that.
Why are we starting this coming Monday then?
Because they don't have an option for that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to do Flea Flicker because they had so many options.
They do, just not that particular one.
They don't have enough options.
Well, I'm sure this is all wonderful content for our 3 listeners,
yes.
But we can talk about that off air. So anyway, if you've made it this far, a little over 3 hours in, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Sports Ballers podcast. We will talk to you next week. Take it easy.